Thank you for your attendance this evening. Chapter 295 of the City of Reading's Codified Ordinances requires that the HARB be guided by the United States Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. Chapter 180, Construction Code, and by any policies and or guidelines hereafter adopted by the board or the City of Reading. While meetings of the HARB are generally informal, Robert's Rules of Order are used to structure the proceedings and maintain decorum. All attendees are asked to mute their phones, turn off their ringers, and the audio portion of these proceedings are being recorded for record-keeping purposes. When the applicant hears the name of his or her property called by the chair, they should wait for the preservation officer to present the property summary and application proposal. The chair will recognize the applicant when the time is appropriate for him or her to present any supporting information to the board. Applicants are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. Is there meeting minutes from previous month?
No.
For our review? Are there any conflicts of interest for tonight's agenda? You skip that one and go to Alvarez, the first one. Oh, that's
they're together.
354 Penn Street.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna skip down our first agenda item. Number 1 is not here, so I'm gonna skip to item number 2, which is 354 Penn Street. If you want to come sit at the table.
May I ask, what was agenda item number 2?
Oh, are you here?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't
I'm
see you.
here.
I apologize.
You were sitting in the back row. That would have been 2 hours of worry. You were sitting in the back row.
I was looking for a man.
No, I totally get it. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I asked.
So this is 50 North Fish Street and 401 Penn Street. I'm sorry.
And I don't have building descriptions prepared for tonight, but I will read the standards that apply. So this is 450 North Fifth Street and 401 Penn Street, and it is for the request of an extension of the installation of vinyl graphics on various storefront windows depicting selected student artwork as part of the Fast Lane Art Program sponsored by Burks Arts until September 2024. And Secretary of the Interior standards that apply are number 2, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. And number 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. And the artwork that's in question or being asked to be receive an extension was approved last October for 1 year.
Right.
If you could just tell us your name.
My name is Justin Heimbecker. I'm
Okay.
the executive director of Burks Arts.
Okay.
I work with Amanda. About a year ago, we all approved, as you've done, in years past, for the temporary window installations to go up. And for a couple of reasons, the installation was delayed. One is that the program is growing. And so there's some production challenges with the scale of the program growing, which is a great problem, but it slowed us down. And then once we finally got that sorted out, weather became a challenge through the winter. So I think these things finally got up right around April 1st. And so we missed about 6 months of the approved window, just for between those 2 reasons. And all of the property owners, the college, M&T Bank, Alan Schumann, everybody loves the art. We've gotten great feedback on it. And so we would love to, be able to have the life of that installation go as long as everybody is able and willing and happy with it, and it's not disrupting anyone. We'd be grateful for that. So that's my request.
Mr. Booth, would you be willing to take lead with this?
Sure.
I didn't realize you were here. I have a conflict.
Oh,
That-
understood.
Yeah.
No problem.
Sure, no problem. So, yes, are there any questions or comments from board members?
So this is just for the display of the artwork in the windows?
Right.
As it is now, yeah,
Mhm.
nothing's changing, nothing's being added or
Okay,
anything.
nope.
So it's, what's there gonna still be there, just if you're looking for an extension.
Extension, exactly, there's more time to leave it up.
Okay, yeah, that's,
Any other comments or questions?
No, it was approved before, they're looking for an extension, I don't see why you can't extend it.
Would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion that, we approve or extend the approval of the COA for the display of the artwork at the, property located at, was it 401 Penn Street, North Fifth? For a year to, is there a date, October?
September.
Okay, September of 2024.
Thank you. And a second?
I will second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Politica. Ms. Johnson, can you record the votes?
Yes.
You have the sheet.
Mr. Booth.
I can vote, yes, I'll vote in favor.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes,
Mr. Politica.
Yes,
Ms. Walker abstains.
So motion is carried and approved. You have an additional year extension. I will yield the floor back to the chair, back to Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're up. If you could sign the clipboard, just with your names on there.
Do you guys need any of them?
I've given them everything, those exact pictures, that's what you submitted with your building permit application, okay, yeah. They did receive that. So this is item number 2, 354 Penn Street. And tonight we are reviewing the request for the removal of 7 brick chimneys at the main roof located on the western, northern, eastern, and southern roof lines. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are number 2 and 5, of which I read earlier. And number 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. And I did do some research of old photographs from passing scene books, of which have been passed out to all the board members, of which do show chimneys, maybe not as many that I can tell on the main roof, but there have been chimneys since the beginning of that building. So if you just want to explain the project.
So, sure, so again, they're a hazard right now, they are deteriorating, they are loose, so we were looking to remove them. Again, I also searched for old pictures, I mean, they're hard to come by. They certainly don't look like when you go back in the pictures, that they're there at all, or maybe they're just not as prominent, back then. So again, we looking to remove them.
And can you explain a little bit about what's happening on the interior of the building? Like, is there no longer a natural chimney there?
So we don't believe on some of them that there is anything down below. The chimney physically moves.
Okay.
Like you can walk up and move that with your
Okay.
hand. And it's really unsafe right at the moment. Yeah, even the brick that's on the chimney, I mean, I don't know if that was, but I'm not sure if that's actually period correct for that building. Anyhow, if they changed the chimneys or rebuilt the chimneys at some time or what they did, it doesn't seem period correct for that, so. Somebody's definitely been there before.
The building has been renovated over the years, but, so there's no evidence of like a chimney on the interior though, or fireplaces, or that like goes
It's,
down to
it's
the
hard to
base?
tell from the inside, but
Oh, okay.
5 of the 7 chimneys have definitely been undermined to some point where those chimneys can physically move, which should not be.
If you remove the chimneys, it's going to leave a hole in the roof. How is that gonna be handled?
I believe through the scope of work that we talked about with the college, we were gonna remove the chimney and put a in-kind metal cap on there, like the roof was. To patch that up is what we were looking to do.
So standing seam metal pans
Yeah,
that tie into the existing standing seam roof.
correct.
And that roof is galvanized steel.
It looks to be some form of a galvanized steel. I'm not sure if the galvanized is still on it or not. There's been so many coats of coating on it from what I've seen on the pictures that. We have to do a little more investigation on that roof to see if it is actually galvanized. It could very well be just regular tin.
And so the pieces that are used to patch that would be what material then?
We would try and match it in kind, whatever it was.
Painted galvanized steel.
Yeah,
So they're gonna stand out quite a bit because there'll be new material with a new paint finish that's not weathered as opposed to what's there now. Is there a plan to refinish the existing roof in the short term?
I believe so, just not 100% sure, but yes. Right now, previous owners, used asphalt shingles on there, so we would be looking to go back to the tin or the galvanized steel, whatever is required.
That was one of my questions, because the previous owner replaced the roof without having any permits. It's not been approved by the HARB. But when I spoke to a representative from Alvernia about a year ago, they were in the process of acquiring the building, so he said, just hold off and let us get the building but that's was one of my questions, is it the intention of Alvernia to replace that roof as a standing seam roof or some sort of standing seam metal roof?
Yes.
Okay.
And what's the time frame for that replacement?
That, as far as, we're still in the works of looking at deciding what we're gonna be doing with the interior, with renovations. I know that there's still talks. I think we're getting close to an idea, so I think once we know that, then we'll have the plans for the whole building, to be renovated.
So a time frame has not been established yet. Has a violation notice been issued for the asphalt shingles?
No, because I was in discussion with Alvernia, and then just as I said, I said, this is a violation. They said, we're in the process of acquiring it and we want to do right by the building and we intend on replacing the roof, but things change over time. So I was curious as if that was still
No,
the intention.
it's again, it's still the case to, upgrade it.
Cause I know I have pictures that I've taken when you're standing to the west on Penn Street. You can see that it was a standing seam roof, so it's less visible on the 4th Street side from a vantage point, but definitely down Penn Street, you can see the asphalt roof that's been installed.
My question would be, if this is approved as a repair to a roofing system that's clearly exceeded its anticipated service life, and the replacement is imminent and there's an outstanding violation. Obviously, the notice hasn't been issued yet, but perhaps should have been. Maybe we should be considering this as a temporary repair as opposed to a permanent installation.
I know this building has some kind of ties to some historic preservation in Philadelphia also. I know there's a marker outside on the building. Do you know anything about that as far as what that actually means?
From what I know, it means they own our facade.
They own your facade,
Correct. I would have a consultant that we've been working with. I'm not, I'm knowledgeable on it, but not real knowledgeable.
Right.
And she's with the Delta Group.
Is it Bonnie Mark?
Yes. So we've been working with her. She definitely has more knowledge with the historical part of it than I do.
So does that restrict you from doing anything?
I believe so, yes.
If there's repairs for the property, what is the actual organization out of Philadelphia that owns your facade? I wanted to stop and look at I've been told about it before. I'm just trying to think if there's money out there to help, with the project from this organization. I don't know of any other buildings in the city of Reading that have this facade ownership out of Philadelphia with this.
The Philadelphia Historic Preservation Corporation.
Is this a condo agreement?
Again, I'm not, conservation easement is what the plate says on the building.
It was probably, if I had a guess, and I'm only guessing because I don't know this for a fact. As I recall, the condition that building was in the late 1970s to early 1980s was deplorable at best, and that was really being kind to saying it. It was really in bad shape. The complete front of the building, as well as the windows, was completely altered. I mean, it had a metal marquee around the front, if I remember. Because it was Shirelli Brothers, and what I'm looking for right now is I'm trying to find a picture. I have a picture in one of these in this drive of what it looked like in like the 60s, and that's kind of what you want to look like. But it just went downhill because no one took care of it, and it just looked worse. So I'm trying to find. I don't know to what degree shall we say the restoration, they restored the entire front, and that's probably where the tie-in is as far as that's concerned. Because I'm sure that there was somebody available at that time to help them make that restoration, because they completely changed the face of that building from what it looked like in the 1970s. They did more than just taking paint off and changing the color.
Right.
They redid the windows, they put the original windows back in, because all those windows were boarded up on the upper floors. They put the original windows and they put the original downstairs on also as well. So they did an extensive amount of work. So all that woodwork was not exact, that was all new from like 40 years ago. So that wasn't necessarily something that lasted before the turn of when the hotel came around. The hotel came about in the late 1850s, 1857, 1858, I believe. So it was the Quan Hotel first before it became the American House. It was the American House for quite some time. It was at that point in time in the city that was one of the preeminent hotel as you went around the horn with the preeminent hotels over the years, of course, of time. Now it's the DoubleTree downtown, but that was at one point in time the preeminent hotel. After it took over for the Mansion House, but fortunately, on my phone here, I can only see these pictures very tiny and I can't really make them out. And I'm also kind of curious, were those, the other thing is The cupola wasn't there either, so they re-put the cupola back on top. But the other part is did they change the pitch of the roof? It's the other thing I don't know about. That's what I'm trying to look at too. Were those chimneys even there 50 years ago? That's the question. You know, were they just redone?
The cupola was, and this is the picture in the 1860s.
Yeah, but not in the 1970s. It wasn't there.
I
That's
see.
what I'm looking
Okay.
for. That's what I'm trying to look for here. I have a really good picture from the courthouse that looks right down on it, and it's like 1963, 64.
Maybe this outfit from Philadelphia. That is, owns the facade.
Well, and then this picture from the 1950s, it isn't there. So it might have been a period of time. Did you get the packet of pictures?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. So it might have been a period of time where it was removed.
Yeah, it was definitely gone for quite some time, yeah.
Yes. 1, 2, 3. I think there's one added. Balance now. What is this? Now we're billboard.
Oh.
So you said this other party owns the facade. How far does their ownership extend? Is it the entire exterior envelope? Does it include the roof?
I'm not 100% sure. Again, I'd have to reach out to our consultant, who knows a lot more out there about it.
So who would be completing this repair? Alvernia?
It would be Albernia. Yeah, and again, the reason it came about is just the safety issue of it. And we're worried that those bricks are gonna come down on somebody. And that's our main concern right now.
So if Alvernia doesn't own the roof, how is that possible? How can we grant approval to a non-owner in that case?
Yes.
Is there any way that you can structurally make that safe? So those bricks are not falling until you find out, because we would hate to give permission for you to go ahead and do something. And then this other organization is like, whoa, you know, you don't have any right to, you know.
Right.
Give that permission. Can you,
Till we actually. Like tear the cap of that top of that chimney off and see what's going on with that. We're not sure what's going on
can you
With
brace it?
without, it would take some extensive work on the inside to see what's going on with that.
Are they still open chimneys or are they capped?
They're capped,
They're capped with brick.
Oh, wow.
but they're not visible from the inside. I mean, it would
No.
take extensive work to
Right.
try and get into.
I'm just
there.
thinking some kind of brace so they don't fall down on Penn Street, you know what I'm saying, that just until you can find out more information. I'd hate to give permission. For you to take them down or do anything without getting permission from that organization out in Philadelphia. I don't even know if they exist. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it actually, on the plate, it's in 1985. So it makes.
That's about the time when that building was purchased, so that would make perfect sense. They probably granted money towards the restoration of that building.
tell me the name again. Philadelphia,
Philadelphia Historical Preservation. Historic
historic.
Preservation Corporation.
Well, we can find out relatively easily by searching the deed.
Wasn't Bill McMahon involved with that?
Years and years ago.
When it-
Yeah. and
Yeah, in the
tech
beginning,
engineer.
he was the one that was involved with that at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a good resource to look at too. So that's-
It doesn't come up, but a Philadelphia Historical Commission comes up, and then a Philadelphia Historic Preservation Corporation. Let's see then, founded in 1979 as a nonprofit. appropriation to guide investment dollars into historic renovation projects through tax and other financial incentives. There might be money out there for you through this program to help pay for this stuff, and I would rather you guys get permission from them first, or at least talk to them before we go ahead and, I don't know if the board would,
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if we're in the position to do anything. tonight.
right, but as a safety
Yeah.
concern, I don't know how you feel about this, Mr. Booth, but if some kind of brace or something could be put up temporarily, we could give them a certain amount of time to contact this organization in Philadelphia, and then,
Well, certainly temporary stabilization, I think we have to look at that. The photos that I'm seeing. There's a north facing chimney that I'm surprised hasn't fallen off.
No, they all look
yeah,
bad.
it's in bad shape.
That needs to be addressed immediately.
Yeah.
And so we do need to approve some kind of temporary stabilization, but in terms of removal and replacement. I would think that would have to go through the owner, and we need to verify who that is.
And find out if the roof is part of that facade. When I think of facade, I think of the walls, but this organization might consider the roof, and if there's money out there to help you pay for this.
Right.
It could be a bigger project that you could sink in some money.
Well, and if the owner is in fact another entity. Then it seems appropriate that a violation notice would be issued not only for the roof replacement that happened previously, but also. The demolition by neglect of these chimneys directly to that entity.
Mhm.
And then they should be coming to the board with a proposal on how these conditions are rectified.
Rectify that.
Should be a joint proposal.
I've never heard of anything like this as far as the,
Owner of the building is Alvernia, the owner of record. It's just the owner of the easement, which I've never dealt with.
From what I understand, yes.
Is that common?
You're the only one I've ever heard of in the city.
I've never heard of this either. And I only know about it because, John McCluskey said something about plaque putting outside of the building and, you know.
Are you able to provide a copy of the deed? That would make Ms. Johnson's life a little easier.
Yeah, I'm sure I can round it, yes.
This maybe have to be tabled, let's say, so.
Well, we can at least, a motion can be made to secure,
Oh, yeah. I
so,
agree with that, yes. I agree with that. I can make that motion if we'd like.
hold on one second, I'm trying to think, is that 180 days?
Well, that would be the standard time frame.
Right,
For something like this. Board might want to consider a longer time frame. We're entering into cold weather.
Yeah.
I can see the stabilization happening now, but
right.
in terms of holistic roof repair and replacement, maybe not before spring of next year.
Yeah, spring, summer next year project, yeah.
So to go to 365 days or even longer might be appropriate. This is a big project,
Yeah,
because if this is headed toward a standing seam metal roof replacement. This could be a 2-year endeavor.
so,
I don't know what Alvernia thinks of that time frame, but when we approve temporary installations, generally they're within a limited time frame. 180 days is our standard. Right. We have the discretion to approve longer time frames, but then it becomes more difficult to track it. And oftentimes they fall off the map. You never see the outcome, and then the temporary installation becomes permanent. That's what we're trying to avoid. Right. Yeah, understood.
and I think this would benefit you guys too, to really investigate this and keep in touch with Ms. Johnson as far as. The progress of tracking down this organization. I'll do some research too, and
Do you think we could allow them to take the level of the brick down? Not eliminate,
to flush.
but just take it down so that any possibility of it tipping over and falling down on the sidewalk or something like that.
If that's part of the stabilization,
But not
Yeah.
removing the chimney, the total chimney itself.
I think in your motion, whoever makes the motion, can say that, once the contractor starts to mess around and dig around there, that they keep in touch with Miss Johnson and she could, agree or disagree with.
And I can report back to the board members as well.
That stuff could be saved and preserved in case, for that scenario too.
So were your intentions to just take the brick off of the roof, not,
Correct.
is it lined all the way down?
We don't know till we
Oh, you
open
don't
that
know.
up, but our intent was to get it down safely below roof line and cap that.
Okay,
Unless we ran into something that was even more unsafe once we got down to that point. That it created an unsafe issue inside the building.
okay.
We just didn't know. But it's really odd that you can walk up to the top of that chimney and go like this and move a brick chimney.
Yeah, that's,
It's just not, something was undermined underneath
mhm.
inside during previous renovations.
Well, that was most likely for heat in the rooms of the hotel.
Right.
How, with the configuration with the floor going across the front. Kind of hard to figure out how that, maybe the one chimney stretch further down to the next floor below. I'm
Yes.
not sure of that, you know.
I've seen it go sideways already.
I'm sure that when they renovated that into the office building that they made it into in the 1980s, that it's there for decoration and nothing more. The picture I found isn't the one that I was thinking of, because the picture I found has a big Shirelli's Brothers sign on the top of the building. And the building looks actually in pretty decent shape in this one, like that. So, but you can't really tell. I did take a photograph before they did the renovation in the 1980s that I have at home. And that's gonna look really decrepit. So
Before they did the front facade on it.
before they did anything, before that was even a thought process, you know. I was like into documenting historic buildings downtown and what they looked like at that point in time. That was probably around like 1980, was likely, so that was about 43 years ago. So
I mean, safety wise and historical wise, there's nothing wrong with taking that.
they could have very well been
down.
put back up there. My point is, they may not have even existed in the 70s, is my point.
Right.
Yeah, because there were signs up there too,
Right.
you know, so they may not have even existed. They might have just put them up for decoration to replication as a replication project. So that's the other thing to consider also as well.
My initial thoughts when I seen it was that when somebody renovated those rooms, those chimneys were just in their way, so they knocked them out and then they're at the top.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's nothing below that has a fireplace in any of them, you know.
Right.
So they very well could be nothing more than just decoration up there to replicate the original, you know, configuration of the building. So, you know, so then that opens a different kind of discussion too, as far as that's concerned also.
I just wanted to clarify. Done, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
I didn't know about the roof replacement until, I took a tour of 401 Penn Street. And then took these pictures from the upper windows and saw that the roof was replaced, and then that's when we had the discussion about Albernia's intentions. Cause you can't see it from down below, and then afterwards I walked down Penn Street and I remember noticing, yes, you can see the asphalt shingles from up Penn Street, but when you're down here, you can't see it.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw somewhere in the last few years. I don't know how long ago it was, you know, let's say within the last 5 years, I saw an aerial picture of the building with the roof in a decrepit position.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's recent that it was done.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't know.
I remember when this happened, there was a windstorm and part of that standing seam roof blew off.
mhm. Yes,
It was coming down, you know.
yeah,
Okay, well, whoever decides to make the motion. There's a lot of components that we just
you kind
discussed.
of talked me out of it.
I know that Mr. Booth brought up the fact of violation towards the facade part of it. I know we discussed that, as long as making it safe, secure. The contractor could keep in touch with Ms. Johnson, and then she could keep in touch with us. We talked about giving 365 days for Alvernia to, find out exactly, what facade means. Does that mean the walls? Does that mean the roof? And also, getting a copy of the deed. So to make Ms. Johnson's life a little easier.
So in terms of the long-term plan for this roof and these chimneys, since we don't know the ownership, the full story yet, I think that's gonna take some research. We can't do anything on those lines at the moment. What we can approve is the temporary stabilization. And to what extent that involves removing the existing brick, we don't know. That's not our determination. To stabilize this, that's up to an engineer to figure out what needs to be done to keep them from falling onto the sidewalk below. If the brick is removed, what we can say in our motion, in our resolution, is that it may have to be put back, that this is a temporary stabilization, and that it does not constitute approval of a permanent repair or replacement.
Determining on who owns the building,
Right,
because they might have a say, that might be out of our hands.
right.
Once that organization is identified properly and, that's good.
And like you said, even if they still exist.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they were 1979s when they were established, which makes sense. Someone want to make a motion?
I would be willing to make that motion,
Oh,
as I
okay.
stated previously. Yeah. And that would be for a time frame of 365 days for the temporary stabilization.
As long as the contractor keeps in touch with Ms. Johnson as to what that stabilization means. If it means taking it flush to the roof, if it means putting some kind of bracket around there to stabilize it. They would keep in touch with Ms. Johnson on those terms.
And for them to return to the board once the ownership issue is determined.
Well, that's up to
Or
us.
easement.
We have to determine the extent of ownership of Alvernia, the extent of this easement. Does it extend all the way to the roof? Does this entity still even exist? And then we need to issue violation notices. And that will start the process of the long-term plan coming to us in the form of a proposal.
What happens if they don't exist?
If they don't exist, then I would imagine the deed is defunct.
Depending on what if you're aware that they own the facade, that must have come up at closing, or where did that come up?
Again, I wasn't involved with closing.
Right,
That this is
Passed
word of
down.
mouth, what I've heard from my boss,
Right.
John.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that's what I've been told. So again, I think it sounds like we need to really find out. I mean, is it just the facade? Is it the roof? Do they even exist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I would imagine that would become like a title insurance issue.
Yeah. But it might, it might just been built into the deed as like just as an easement or something like that. It's just there.
This could really benefit you, I would think, or not, but it's worth looking into.
Yep.
Okay. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Booth made a motion. Did someone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Politica,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think you got the gist of, get that secured, stay in touch with Miss Johnson. Save those bricks. Just in case. And get that information to Miss Johnson when you can. And I'm gonna do some research to see what I can find out, yeah. I'm really interested in that.
And you got me interested now.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I am
Can't
seriously.
see that like how,
yeah,
because I've never heard of that before.
yeah,
It's
this
interesting.
is a first for us too, so.
Can I keep those?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Agenda tonight, guys, we'll be trying to keep this moving. Yeah.
Nobody's here. She was gonna.
Nobody's
try-
here from 300 South Fifth Street. All right, we're gonna go back to that then. The next item is 401 Oley Street. You just want to sign in there for, please, thank you.
This is 401 Oley Street, and tonight we are reviewing the request for the replacement of 14 original multi-pane over single-pane wood windows with 14 double-hung 1/1 white vinyl windows, and the work has been completed. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are number 2, 5, and 6, of which I read earlier, and the HARB window replacement guidelines.
Good evening. We moved to the city last year, August 31st. Our windows were in terrible shape. I mean, I would take, so outside and inside, they had I never dealt with, I never knew what lead was, because we never had that issue growing up. But my children were getting sick constantly. I didn't know what the problem was. So then somebody brought it to my attention, you may have lead in the home, so I had somebody come out from Jersey and looked at it. They said, absolutely, there's all over your son's bed. He's 5, the other son's 12, and they were really sick. I was going to the doctor's constantly. So I snapped into action. We got estimates for windows, and I went with the cheapest estimate for it was like $17,000. I had no idea that I was in a historical society district. There is no way in this world I would have ever went and did anything to bring attention to myself or to bring even why I'm here tonight. So my main goal was to see about my children. I even got the blood test with very high elevated lead poisoning in their blood. Myself, I have the highest out of everyone in the house, but myself. So anyway, I got these estimates, and windows were replaced, and the day they were replaced, that's when I found out, what are you doing? You're in historic. I said, oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. And so, but nevertheless, so this has been a long journey. Ms. Johnson has been most very nice to us, and as far as cordial and communication. And so I don't know what to do with. I mean, I'm stuck with a $18,000 payment I'm paying for the next 6 to 7 years. And I went and got, according to Ms. Johnson's recommendations, I went and got some estimates from the original window company and from another window company that did our church in New Jersey. And I couldn't believe, I didn't know if the guy was giving me a joke or whatever. It was like $60,000 to replace these windows, to come back out and do them and put wood windows, or he said some kind of composite in there. So I spoke to him again. The one estimate I got from the original guys, they said 43,000, which is, I mean, that's a lot of money. But the other window company, they said on the low side was $57,000. So the guy recommended, and I talked to someone else in the city. As far as the appearance, I know nothing about Windows 601, 401 until now, casements, all that kind of terminology. But I went to the window company and they gave me examples of grids, maybe to even just keep the appearance of what was there before. According to the pictures, I believe upstairs we had 4/1, and then downstairs was 6/1. That's the terminology, right? So, yeah, so. That's why I'm throwing myself on the mercy, not the court, but on the mercy of the board. I don't know what else to do. It's financially impossible for me to even take the windows out and leave them open. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. The most financially thing that makes sense that I can actually do is put grids in there to keep the appearance of the original. I even asked the company that did the installation, did they save my windows? And the guy laughed at me. He said, we were taking them out, they were falling apart. I said, oh, I'm just asking, I'm just merely asking. The lead issue is something totally separate, because that's another thing. The abatement wasn't done properly and it spread over my house. So we had issues with that. But that's the original reason why I even did that with these windows. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been even, I wasn't doing something along something else. And that's where I'm at. I looked in, there's a section, it's a historic section in Reading called Callow Hill.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's one of the other historical.
Yeah, so I was driving all around the city to burn the whole tank of gas, looking in the historic districts, anything that anybody who had vinyl windows, but in a historic district. But I saw some that appeared vinyl, and I didn't want to walk to people's houses, but I saw it looked vinyl, and they had the same appearance. That's what I got the idea. And the fella from the city told me just to look into keeping the same appearance, at least whatever you can do. But yeah, I was off the record with someone. All right. So anyway, to keep the appearance, at least to keep the appearance, so it won't it'll uniform with the rest of the house. You see.
Some of those properties might be in violation that you're unaware of, that we might be in the midst of litigation with them or having them come in front of us. I have a letter here from October that you received stating that you were in a historic district. It's also October of 22 last year.
Miss Johnson and I discussed that, and I told her I never received a letter. I don't know, is it certified? Was it? I don't know. I never received certified letters. I never received a letter. All right. So she gave me a copy of, I have a copy of that recently. But if I would have received it, I'm a pastor in the city of Trenton. I don't do things underhand, things like that, shady things. I know what happens, but this was totally out of ignorance.
And also at closing, when you close on your property, they have to inform you that you're in a historic district, and that stack of papers that you sign. I think Chris Miller notified you of that when you spoke to city council.
I spoke to Chris, and he said, yeah, in there is a little, he explained, there's a little line in there that says historic. I said, I signed 1,000 signatures. I didn't see that. Honestly, I didn't see that,
By right, the realtor is supposed to let you know about that. To what degree they do that is another story, but.
I didn't even get, there's no CO for the house. There's no certificate. I don't know if you guys do COs in Pennsylvania. Certificate of occupancy.
Only for commercial properties.
Okay, because mine is mixed use, my house mixed use, like commercial.
I thought it was a single family.
It's a single family, but the deed says mixed use.
But
For the back lot.
That's the old herb line
Yeah.
county.
There was a house in that parking lot back in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was a little brick home that was not historic at all, and they were able to somehow, Ms. Johnson might have been here at that time, that they tore that down to make that parking lot in the back there.
And that's what makes it just commercial, because it's 711 North 4th is that address.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
And we're 410, that's the.
Yeah, because that was an accounting firm at one point.
Yeah, and it was also a temporary agency, something else, I think, one time.
We're held to guidelines that are pretty much out of our hands. These are not our rules. This is like the state. This is also ordinances that the city creates. There's ways to abate lead without ripping your windows out. I have some packets here. One of them is that you can paint over the lead. over the lead paint to stop the lead from coming through without destroying the windows and
It's
ripping
called
them out.
encapsulation.
Yes.
The windows were, the wood was exposed to the point that the wood was rotted. And they did that painting on the outside for appearance sake to cover things up, you know, but yeah. I cut my finger trying to open one of the windows because it peels like an alligator skin. And it cut me wide open on my finger. And so, and then in the other window, there's I don't know what you call the things in the rope. That broke and the window went like this. I said, oh my God. And so, and then it was a quagmire, the entire process. So I didn't know what to do. I wasn't familiar with the entire process. You know, as far as painting over the lead, the other windows in my house, the other 3 corners of my house, you know, I got to figure that out. We just have plastic, so we can't even open it like this plastic, with nothing to come in. But
You talked with the lead abatement
I
office.
spoke to the young man.
They have a program now. They got a $5.5 million grant. Did you talk to them about?
Yes, he came to him and there were 2 other individuals that came to my house. He didn't want to open it. He said, "Oh no, I'm not." He said, I see all that. He
Are
come
you
down.
going through the program?
Yes, I have the paper. I have the paperwork for that. I had to get the blood tests again to see our current levels and everything like that. But
Are you going through the financial program that they will, if you qualify for that program financially, they will replace the windows through their grant exactly the way that they were,
okay.
the wood windows. We sat down and talked to him. He gave us the executive committee, a little bit of a presentation, and you would have to fill out the financial information with them to see if you would qualify for that program.
Okay.
And what I had explained to Mr. Bynes is because the windows now are vinyl, it is strictly against the HARB window policy to approve vinyl. And he was interested in the financial hardship application, and I gave that to him and explained to him that because of his high rating of 124, the policy states that the property owner is not eligible for the replacement of wood windows with another material unless they go through financial hardship. But one of the, or among the financial hardship, the window policy, window materials, the policy describes aluminum clad wood or wood composite. And in order for Mr. Bynes to fill out or complete the financial hardship application, he would really need to know from the review board what might be acceptable so that he can actually get the quotes, because he needs to provide quotes for the replacement in kind and the replacement with an acceptable material, if the board thinks that there's acceptable material. It's kind of a catch-22.
Well, I think the acceptable materials are clear in the window policy. Obviously, an in-kind replacement wood for wood is recommended in all instances where the original windows were wood. We have approved composite and clad window products in the past, and they are typically accompanied by a financial hardship application. So if you decide to pursue financial hardship consideration, you can work with Ms. Johnson, and she can sort of lead you through that process. It is somewhat involved. There's a lot of submittal requirements, financial information that has to be submitted to the board, but we could consider that.
And if we make a decision this evening, you also have an opportunity to appeal that to City Council. Okay.
So
I think tonight it would have to be we would have to make, or I don't even know if there's an application. Is there, did he fill out an application? He did, okay, I don't have my. I think we would have to deny the application, but we, for the submittal of the financial hardship information, or, if we
Or
deny,
table it.
yeah, well, that was the other option, right? Table it until. But don't we have to originally deny the original, we have to deny that application,
Not necessarily. We
Table it,
tabled it,
yeah.
yes.
table it and then,
Until, allow him time to submit the financial hardship
Right.
application.
okay.
Yeah, we have done that in the past. And then.
Well, then
when
he's gonna lose his opportunity to appeal to city council if the financial hardship application does not go through, if he does not qualify for that, and I'd hate to see him lose that if.
Actually, he would, when he comes to the review board for, the financial hardship application. At that time, the
Right.
board would have to deny the installation
Okay.
of the vinyl windows.
Okay,
And
and
then,
then he would have that period of time to appeal to city council.
right, and in the review of the financial hardship application, the board would, depending on what the outcome is. The board would either approve or deny,
Right,
but even just the denial of the white vinyl windows, he could appeal to city council.
right,
That makes
right,
sense.
right.
I know it's convoluted, and I can.
I just hate for him to lose that opportunity because we've had people miss that opportunity before.
So if the board tables this review tonight, then you would work on the financial hardship application. And I can help you further, but as we discussed even today, you just need to fill out or provide the information, get the quotes from the contractors. And then come back to us.
So, let me understand this, if it's approved, if the financial hardship application is approved for composite or clad, you say?
Those are possibilities.
Possible. So. How long do you have to get that, because how do I put windows in, how do I pay for something I don't have? You see?
You're just getting an estimate.
Yeah, again, that's, I understand it, but so what's the time frame of rectifying this whole situation after I'm approved for the hardship application? Then what are the next steps?
I think we have to wait to see if you qualify for the financial hardship.
Yeah, we would need to see that first. In terms of how long you have to put together that information, I don't know. We would have to make that determination. I don't know that there's a set time frame.
Can we do like a 30-year?
I think, so I guess we need to know, are you interested in pursuing financial hardship consideration?
Yes, because I have the application that Amy gave me,
Okay,
and I had a couple of questions on it, but she answered them.
so in that case, then I would be in favor of tabling the application. But we need to talk a little bit about what that financial hardship application entails. So obviously, one of the components of that is the quotation for wood replacement windows. So that would be coming from a contractor who would supply and install an in-kind replacement of what you had before. And then another component of that would be a quotation for the replacement that you received, which you have. That information is already in your possession.
Right.
If you would like us to consider an alternate material, we also need a quotation for that.
Okay.
So there's 3 different quotes there, and we need to compare those numbers. They're getting plugged into an equation. They're only one piece of the pie. We have a lot of other factors that we consider, the value of the property, purchase price, things like that. So we don't know. We can't sit here and tell you whether or not that's going to be approved, and it'll take some time.
Okay.
And I can, of course, talk to you more about it and answer any other additional questions.
All right. Thank you.
So they just have to make the their decision as to whether to table it or.
Does everybody agree with that?
I would agree with you.
Very good. So I'll make a motion to table the application for 401 Holy Street. Pending the submission of financial hardship documentation from the applicant.
I second it.
Okay, Mr. McDevitt,
Yes,
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Politano.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Let's see.
Is anybody here from 1506 North 15th Street? 524 Douglas Street?
Yeah.
Okay, come on up.
Is there an option for public comment? Or was that one pass?
No, there is not unless you make me aware that you want to speak, unless the board agrees to allow you to speak.
Not what's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not.
It's
it has to be
okay,
on the
I'll
agenda.
put myself on the agenda at a later time,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm. This is 524 Douglas Street. And tonight we are reviewing the proposal for the installation of a 6-foot-high chain link fence with a rear yard. And replacement of all the original wood windows with white vinyl replacement windows at the northern, western, and southern facades, and work has been partially completed. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are the same as the last. Numbers 2, 5, and 6, which I read previously, and the HARB window replacement policy. And if you just want to explain.
Yes, also the third floor, you told me it's supposed to be like a U, it was never U window there. I have a picture in, that's why I put the iPad. There's the. Okay, right here. They're all the same windows, here's the picture. Now it was like a U window. Square window.
A lot of those windows, even though they're curved on the
It's
outside,
okay.
the top of the window goes up above that arch and is square,
Not-
so that's
not-
probably
Nothing close, you can
what
take a look
that
here,
shows.
you can take a look here. They're both the same. This one before I purchased the house, no, from the realtor.
I can't tell from here. But if you want to explain your project.
Yeah, when I purchased the house, there were no windows in there, no glass, and nothing. The floors started getting very bad, I had to replace all the floors. The first thing I had to do to replace the windows, all the water was coming inside. Wood was basically out completely, no glass, nothing. So I didn't know I was in the district, I replaced the windows, because that's the first thing I was supposed to do. Then I started replacing the floors and stuff inside. I'm from New York, I'm living from here. It's my first investment here. You can come and take a look if you want, and then I had the guys still working inside. But it was never your window there, it's square window.
Go ahead and explain your project. I don't need to say that.
I replaced all the floors. Basically because they were very bad. I replaced the windows. And 6-foot fence I put in the back because there were a lot of garbage, people throwing garbage in the backyard.
What we're here for is the 6-foot-high chain link fence in the back.
It was 3
We're-
foot,
Excuse me,
Sorry.
we're also here for the windows,
correct,
and that's it,
right,
fence and windows.
correct. Because the fence, there were 3-foot fence only between my neighbor, because my house is attached in the back where. They used to use those with the window to close and open, they used for the fence. In the back, you can even see in the picture here, full garbage back there. I show you a picture from outside too. This is what it was before, back in the back. I don't know if you have a picture there, and
I
Actually, I had made and I forgot to send it to the review board, but I had made my own packet of information from.
There's the fence.
And you said that it was like a 3 foot tall
3 foot tall, yes.
wire fence, like one of the old wire fences.
Yeah.
that-
On the side was a chain fence between my neighbor and my house. I don't know what's an issue with the fence.
So
It's not a big deal, I can take it down, there's no fence at all, but was-
fences are permitted within the historic districts. The issue would be with the material, the chain link.
there was same chain before. Even my neighbor has the same one. My house is that told my neighbor.
Do we have any documentation of that?
There was,
That it was previously chain linked?
one second. I might have what you like. Number 4.
I did put the letter, he did get a new ownership letter, but it was sent to 401 Oley Street.
I saw an envelope in there with the return.
That's
That's
the violation letter.
Is this property owner occupied?
No, he's creating a rental, a single family rental.
And this was sent to 524 Dublin Street?
Yes, that's how it's recorded from the county, that's the information, so it was sent there. I think Staten Island.
You're not, you
Are
don't
you-
live in.
No, I'm not from here, from Staten.
So you live there now,
I live in Staten.
but you used 524 as your address?
No, I used New York address.
Whenever the closing was, the county information has it as 524 Douglas Street, so
That's
Oh,
how the
no,
letter
the
gets read.
yes, got sent to
Generated.
524 Douglas Street, so
Okay.
whether mail was received, I don't know.
So if the letter, when is it sent? How far before closing?
It's
not,
after.
it's like
It's
a month
after.
after
Okay.
closing. We only get the information from the county about a month after closing.
But there should be that clause when he is closing about the historic
Mhm.
district status.
Oh, yeah.
I did it, actually, I did the close online.
Oh,
All the closing was online.
All the paperwork's there.
Everything, I never met an attorney or anybody. Everything was online. I worked in the bank.
so the only windows that have been replaced so far are in the 3rd floor. And the 1st floor was a 1/1. And around the side here in the 3rd floor, there's another window, and around the back. There are other windows, and actually all of the other homes in the block that are just like this, that are semi-detached, do have a double hung window. I'm sorry, a
And all vinyl
double
too.
window.
And all vinyl. My next door neighbor was vinyl, 2 streets vinyl.
And like I said earlier, they might be in violation and you're just
And I-
not aware of that. We might be in the process of litigation with them. You're just not aware of that.
Okay, a question. According to him, she told me you can put a vinyl fence. A vinyl fence, one wind, it blows everything away. Because I was a contractor in New York, 14 years. In New York, we only can put vinyl windows, because it's clean everything, basically. As #1 window, if you search in New York, it's #1 window is vinyl. I'm 14 years contractor, I can build house from scratch, I do have license. And I do have a pizzeria, like I told her, I invite her for dinner. In Brooklyn.
So I'm sorry, I asked a question while you were looking for that letter. Do we have any documentation of the type of fence that was in place previously?
You took a picture, I think, the other
The
day,
only
from next door neighbor.
thing I have is from the listing, and you can't really see anything.
One second, I'll find it.
And there's sort of a wood, like a broken wood picket fence across the back. But it looks to me like there's something here in the shrub, like a shrub's against it, but then he said that it was
That looks like it's wrought
a
iron.
wire.
That looks like there are vertical
Oh, it could
balusters.
be.
To be honest, 6 times I brought the garbage back in New York, 6 times I filled up my truck.
So, and this is the section of fence that we're considering. now, right?
Yes. You want to surround or put the chain link across the back and up the middle of your yard, right?
That's how I did it.
So,
That's wrought iron.
okay, see, I can't tell. Couldn't tell if it's part of the shrub, but now that you're saying that.
What are you looking at, Amy?
The listing or
Yeah,
pictures
yeah.
from the listing.
But you have it.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
zoom in on that fence and see what it?
I don't know.
You use control and the plus sign, it'll zoom in on the page.
I'll find it the same chain. I have it on you.
Zooms and it goes away.
Yeah,
With this naked figure.
It goes to the next picture, but. Yeah. I made it bigger.
Yeah.
I
You
can't-
should find an arrow. Oh, no.
oh, I know.
It scrolls
Yeah,
down.
it's scrolling.
Maybe it was, maybe it's past it when it got big. Yeah, they'll use it.
Mhm.
No.
Okay, this is the fence we was before. Same material right here. That's what I have next door.
Galvanized steel welded wire.
Yes, that's what that's what was between my house and his house.
You're saying that's what this is?
That's where.
Yes, same exactly one. And the back was, like I said, was garbage, doors, plastics. And people throw a lot of garbage back there, I had to clean the whole yard,
And how high was that?
3 foot,
And so the fence that you have installed now is how high?
6. Because my next door neighbor, the other side, she has a 6 foot, I thought it was fine, you know.
Okay, so the issue that we're having is the original fence, if you would have kept it, would have been fine. It's an
But in
existing.
the back was no fence.
It's, well, this fence right here.
Right.
What you're saying was the welded wire
Right.
steel. Had you not replaced it.
I asked,
it would have never come to
I
the
asked,
board.
I asked my next door neighbor, I met him. I said, can I replace it? So I wanna do 6 foot in the back, and I replace this one too, he said, it's fine, as long as it goes in the same property, same spot. And also the, what do you call, this thing was there already, for this thing,
So because it was replaced.
the word there, I didn't put them. This
Can
was
I
before.
finish?
Yes, sure.
Because you replaced the fence. Typically, the board does not approve chain link. And as I said before, if you would have kept your existing fence, it would have never come to the board. Because it's a new fence, we're responsible to approve all new fences.
Okay.
And the new fence is not in compliance with our fencing policy.
Like I said, I don't know, I don't know what, I really wasn't like financial district.
Okay, I think what's gonna end up having to happen is we're just gonna have to make a motion. He stated his side of it.
If you guys want to remove it, I remove, I was having no fence there, nothing. Or if you guys
Does
want to
anybody
cut
else
it,
have
I cut it
questions?
3 foot.
And in the first page of that, I think, I went on Google Maps, because I've never dealt with this property ever, so I don't have any, and the 1978 photo. I think I provided you. Actually, that shows that it's an arched window. And maybe when it was, well, it's hard to see when, all the other windows, the arched windows are still remaining in the block. But this is the property right here. And from what I could tell on Google Earth, as I was zooming in, it appears to be that it was, still the arched window was there.
That's fine now. You can come see it. I didn't touch the walls.
But
Nothing
you
has to do with
changed,
those.
you changed it now.
No,
so-
all- you can see the wall.
But what I'm saying is usually and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Booth, but usually that type of arched window is arched on the outside.
That's all it does.
Can you please let her
Holding.
speak?
The molding is arched, and then you have a squared off window that fits up inside of there. So on the inside, it looks squared off,
Right,
but on the outside, it still is
correct,
arched.
yeah.
And that's the current condition now, right? So even though it was replaced, it still has the arch on the exterior.
Yes, he
It's a
did.
cased opening that's arched.
He did keep the wood molding on the outside, but now the window, the vinyl window, which is illegal anyway, has. Sure. It's squared off looking on the outside. Do you have a picture of the other one? Sorry, I have. one picture. Although this one. This is the one next door.
Oh, okay.
Of arch, but what I'm trying to describe is usually it is squared off at the top.
So
And it
this
has-
was an arched top sash.
Yes, you're right, yes.
Okay.
But and it was there originally.
Yeah, so what you're describing where it's squared off on the interior was not the original condition. Because that's what's happening here.
Yes, right, so the window itself is no longer ours, but
Right.
this is what it originally looked like.
Are you guys aware of this too, that this is the recommendation here in the red of the executive committee? It kind of helps break it down a little bit
And Google
easier,
Earth, since it's close to
especially with the
yeah,
rear windows.
and you can barely
There's some
see
information at the end of that.
the original trim is there. That's all I could get, yeah. And there's no pictures in the listing that show.
You know what this looks like, Amy? Now that I'm seeing this, I can barely make out
That's what I mean,
a horizontal right here.
yes, it's always,
This sash has an arch light, but it's actually a
Yes.
rectangular sash.
that's what I'm trying to say, yes,
Yes.
I'm not doing a good job of it, yes. It is all, even the big picture windows that are arched, the top of the sash is squared off, but you have an arched window frame.
I can fix.
And you did say that you knew somebody.
Yes,
Or you have somebody that.
I have somebody, I
can
can fix that.
window.
That I can fix, that's not an issue.
So we have to address the windows in the primary and secondary facades. What about the rear window?
Yeah, I mean, the executive committee made the recommendation that, I mean, if they're. It's in the rear of the property, you don't really see it from the
Next
front.
door.
We were kind of letting the HARB decide if they wanted to make him replace those windows or not. Their walking alley. I don't know of a walking alley behind there. I know there's other yards, but no public right of way back there.
No, there isn't, but Church Street is along the side and the only real window on the second floor, it was a 2/2 wood window. And now it is 1/1 vinyl.
On the Church Street side, that's
Yeah.
the east side of the 700 block, correct?
Yeah. don't know.
Yeah, it is.
And those properties are heavily altered in the rear. And I would be willing to accept that installation, but certainly not the primary and secondary.
Yeah, I provided you with. It's the window on the left was 2/2, and now it's 1/1. But the board has approved vinyl windows on a rear facade before.
Yeah, I think our focus should just be the front and.
And on the secondary facade, I gave you pictures of that too. Right now, the windows are replaced on the third floor. It is hard to see because of a tree, but I always consider a tree can always be removed, so. But the policy states no vinyl windows on the primary or secondary facade.
So what we're looking at here is the fence. The first floor front wood double hung wood window has been replaced with 2 double hung vinyl windows. 4 wood windows on the third floor, front and side facades. I guess we would just be looking at that front third floor window, the arched window in the front facade.
Well, and the other third floor window, right? There's
Yeah.
2 on the front. facade.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So should we start with the fence?
Are you looking to break them into separate motions?
No, I think there needs to be, if there's a discussion about it, if anybody has any questions, I was opening it up to discuss the fence, if anybody had any more questions about that.
I don't.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of it?
I do not. I don't answer.
All right, does someone want to make a motion?
No, so I told you guys send me an email for the what I can use.
I forgot to do that, yes.
Yeah,
I will do
please
that.
can you?
Yeah,
Because they're gonna power wash the paint and leave it in red. Okay, that's it. For all the pins are still enough.
yes, and I told you I can approve that at staff level, that's no problem.
I don't want the inspector to come and gives me a violation again.
Have they inspected you haven't had an inspection for the property?
No, they
right?
told me in December,
Oh, okay,
but she wanted to come, she said, you made it to family, I said, you can come, I'll show you the video.
yes, and
It's not to family there,
you've met with the zoning office?
Yes.
To start to get a zoning permit to rent it out.
yes, I did pay, only thing that guy's gonna come for this year, he had an expired driver license.
Ah, okay,
So it is renewed, I actually got the renewal.
Okay.
I don't know if it came back or not.
Okay.
So am I allowed to rent it or? 'Cause I-
once you are issued the zoning permit,
Okay.
and I don't know, you might have to do something with the codes office,
Okay.
but you just have to start with the zoning office. They'll help you,
Okay, very good. Thank you,
and I'm making a note about the wood, I'll send you an email,
okay, sounds good.
sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
What he's referring to is he wants to replace the wood on the front porch and it's tongue and groove, so I was explaining to him what he needed to do.
What kind of wood do you use?
Yeah.
All right, Does anybody have a motion to make?
I'm making too many motions, I'll defer.
Is there a discussion about the fence with, as far as, the material? There was a lot of conversations and
Mr. Booth, I think, said that, chain link is not typically
Right.
approved or
right,
historically appropriate.
right. I mean, but I'm trying to help the emotional here. So, we've approved vinyl in the past.
And
And that would also need to be, approved by zoning, correct?
yes,
So once we approve that, you will have, whatever the board's motion is, you would have to get that approved by zoning now. Okay?
So what's my situation now? What are gonna do, take it down?
We'll get to that point, I'm just saying, so,
Because I'm not gonna put another fence in there, to be honest.
we've approved
I'm
fine,
not spending enough money, I'm already $130,000.
that's okay, we still have to make a motion, okay? You. So we've approved vinyl before,
and
Just on the rear windows?
no, I'm
know,
talking
the
about the fence,
Oh,
right?
fence, okay, the whole fence, yes.
Yeah,
or wood, picket, dog eared style.
yes.
I guess I could ask too, are you interested in? If the board denies the chain link, are you interested in installing a vinyl or?
I'm not-
Or do you just
leaving-
wanna-
I'm leaving it all vinyl.
Okay,
Even my neighbors are gonna have a fence, if he wants to put it, then I put it, I'm done.
Okay.
Even my neighbors are gonna have a fence,
all right.
it's gonna be wide open in the yard.
Then the board can deny if whoever makes the motion, they can just deny it. If
Right,
they feel that it's not appropriate.
right. I think the motion then needs to steer towards the windows and the, material. And the, recommendation of going back to what it originally was, or,
Yes, this has a lesser rating of 76.
right,
So is someone prepared to make a motion? If not, I will.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to deny the application for 524 Douglas Street for the replacement of all existing wood windows with vinyl. And to deny the work that has been completed on primary and secondary facades, replacing the existing wood windows with vinyl. As well as denial of the replacement of the existing fence, rear yard. And that the one exception due to the low composite index rating would be that the replacement of windows on the rear elevation would be approved.
In vinyl, 1/1.
Yes.
This all the house surrounded by vinyl windows. I don't know if you guys know
We've
about it.
had this discussion, they might be in litigation, we're in the midst of making a motion here, so,
Okay, I'm just saying, like I talk
I'll
to.
second the motion.
okay, it's been seconded by Mr. McDevitt. All right, Mr. Politica,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes,
Okay. Ms. Johnson will be in touch with you. I don't know, let you know the process of,
Okay, so what's next? Then?
So they've approved the vinyl windows on the rear facade, you can have that, keep that, the one that you've installed.
So where are they with the front then?
It's denied, so it is your choice to either replace them with
Reface it with the wood?
replace them with wood.
Reface.
No.
Reface with wood?
she's gonna explain it.
Yeah, if you can't reface, it would have to come out, because the board's denying you the vinyl windows.
Okay.
So
Where I got the
but-
wooden windows?
but you can appeal the board's decision to
Okay,
city
can I
council,
appeal?
which I can, talk to you about that.
Mhm.
And then they've denied the fence,
Okay,
so
I'll take the fence
then you
down.
can take the fence
So it's
down,
gonna be very-
not put anything.
It's the same fence it was before that, so you guys know it's fine.
Okay.
How often you guys change the laws? Yeah. How often you guys change the laws?
We haven't.
Because it was the change before. The fence, between my
Before you were the
neighbor.
property owner.
I'm sorry?
The previous property owner might have had a violation for that
It
chain
was
link
no
fence.
violation in the house.
No,
Because when I purchased the house, it was clean title. There was no violation. I just purchased the house. It was no violation whatsoever.
To answer your question, the fence policy was adopted in 1998.
Okay. And for vinyl windows,
Window policy,
2018. Was the last time it was revised.
It's been in
the
existence.
last provision was 2018.
But it's been no vinyl before that.
Way
Oh,
before.
for
at least a
long
decade,
time.
right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
so I have to remove the 4 windows in front. Correct?
I can explain everything to you.
You're gonna call me, you're gonna
Yes,
send me
yes.
email?
I will, yeah, I'll send you an email with the wood, with the description of the wood. I won't,
What else? What about metal? Can you use metal? What,
No,
the windows?
because I can explain it to you.
Because the
or
wood,
you can appeal it to city
it's
council.
$4,000, $5,000 each window.
Because he has a lower composite index rating, he can propose either the
Right.
aluminum clad wood
You could
or a
propose that.
composite window, another type of window, just not vinyl.
Okay,
But I can explain that to you.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes, you too.
Alright, there's a couple addresses we have to go back to, we still have 1403, what address are you here for?
901 Center Avenue, I'm not sure if I made the docket,
You
I don't
did not,
think you did.
no,
asked me for the paperwork on
yes,
the 11th, but it took me a while for the contractors to send them to me, so I sent them in on the 14th, so I was a couple days late, but I just wanted to see how this.
oh, sure, that's
went
okay.
anyway. But, so since I did submit them, when will be the next, HARB meeting?
October 17th, yes, and I have not had a chance because of this meeting, I have not looked at
No,
what
that's fine.
you've submitted, but I only responded to what you originally submitted to help you, but I'll look at that.
October 17th?
October 17th, yes,
Yes.
yes, you too, thank you.
Okay, 1403 Hill Road, Mr. Steranko.
Okay, this is 1403 Hill Road, and this is to review the request for the replacement of existing 3-tab asphalt shingles with certainty landmark asphalt architectural shingles in the color colonial slate. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are 2, 5, and 6, of which I read earlier, and, excuse me, the HARB, roof replacement guidelines. And, just to give you background from, my side, an application was submitted by the roofing company, for this exact application or proposal. And I explained to them that I can not, or it's been, precedent has been set, and it's been our practice that, this type of shingle, which is made to look like a wood shake shingle, is not approvable, where there would not have been originally wood shake shingles. They in turn spoke with the owner, and, then I said, you can appeal my decision to the board, and that's why this is being put on the board. The property next door does have sorry, not wood shake, the asphalt architectural shingles. The contractor actually provided me before I could fully research the property next door, but I had approved those shingles at staff level in 2015. But I don't know, I can't remember what the conditions were, and our policies have changed over time. So that's my statement.
Are you Amy?
I am Amy, yes, nice to meet you.
Amy, I wanted to thank you for that extensive email you sent me describing our situation and even how to get into this joint after hours.
You're welcome.
I have some paperwork that might be appropriate. I have to take a look at. This is my neighbor's paperwork talking about their roof replacement. Would you like to see it?
They did not, if it is a copy of the approval from the neighbors, they did not see that, because I only just got that.
Your name is on it.
Yes. And what I did provide the roofer, the roofing contractor, trying to find it, today, was I gave him 2 examples of where, a slate roof, an original straight edge slate roof was on a property, and the owner was proposing the same type of shingle, and the board denied it. And also there was another application for another property that had a 3-tab shingle on it, just as yours does. And they were proposing the asphalt architectural shingle, and the board denied that as well. There's other examples, but those were the 2 that were in the forefront of my mind. And I don't think you were on that email with the contractor, so you didn't receive that information.
Okay, did you want to talk about your project?
If you can describe the state of
Well,
your
yeah, I'll try to be as brief as possible unless you guys are on overtime.
We're volunteers, so.
And thank you for letting us, all of us, come in. It's been very informative. I've done a lot in my life, but I've never witnessed, Judge Judy architecturally. We need to do something relatively quickly. Because I wasn't aware of this. I've actually never been on the top of the roof. I've spent every year going out a 3rd floor dormer and cleaning the custom-made gutters around the building to keep them clean and so forth. But I've never actually been up on the roof. It's kind of steep and, nothing to hold on to. Even though I don't have a fear of heights, you never know when a wasp or a hornet is going to come over, and you lose that battle. So earlier this year, it might have been in, I don't know, March or April, I was coming into the building, and my neighbor said, there may be a problem on the roof. She said, we found a group of shingles on our back porch roof, and we had our roofer come up to assess what was going on. And he said, this is not your business. This came from the roof next door. I'm in a semi-detached kind of building. And they happen to have a roofer working on some spouting there. And I asked him if he'd go up and check out my roof. He did, he photographed it. And he said there are shingles actually missing. Some of the roof is bare in a few places. I think the hailstorm in 2014, took a toll on everything around here that was on the outside, including my roof. I gave that guy $500 to cover up with tarps the bare roof. I don't know what the situation is right now at the moment, but I called a number of roofers to come up and check it out. And their opinion was across the board that we need to replace the shingles on the roof. And that's how we got here. Now, my concern is that there may already be some water damage in the building. I can see it in the trim of the joints on the third floor. And I can see it on some of the paint, which is rippling or chipping up on the third floor. And so we need to do something relatively quickly to prevent any further damage in the structure itself. It's a beautiful building.
It is.
It's a beautiful property. And in addition to to any damage on the building, the material in the building, which is paintings, artwork, an extensive library, and other expensive paper that we can have damaged. Now, so far, it looks like it's under control. I go up 2 or 3 times a week and look at all the ceilings and joints on the third floor to make sure all is well. But it's just a matter of time. We've had a relatively dry summer, as you know. And I'm thinking the gods will make up for it by giving us one hell of a lot of rain and storms in the fall coming up. We need to do something before damage happens, not only to the building, but the material inside the place. I decided to go with Greenwald because they had extensive experience, number one. And because the guy who came over and looked at the roof, went onto the roof, seemed to be extremely knowledgeable. His experience was extensive. I asked him about it. And together we formulated what he felt would be the best thing to go on the roof. And you may not believe me or him about this, Amy, but he said that the shingles that he recommended would last longer and would be better in a certain way. I don't know anything about shingles or roofs. Then installing the material that the Historic Society recommended go on that roof.
And what I recommended to the owner is typical of what I have been able to approve in the past at staff level was the GAF slate line, which looks like a slate shingle as opposed to what is being proposed.
Right, and that, rules have changed, right? And so things have happened and over time,
I mean, the tower roofs on this property, the existing slate roofs are not being replaced. It's only your main roof, correct?
Say that, please.
It's only your main roof that is being replaced, correct? Not the existing slate roofs that are on the towers and
The church.
the
I
churches, yeah.
spent $7,000 earlier this year from a job I gave to a roofer like last August. His name was Jake Dinner. You may know him. He works on churches a lot. most of the roofers that I called to work on that refused it.
Oh.
They don't do that kind of thing. So he replaced the ridge rolls on the turret and did some slate work for $7,000. And we've had no further problems up there. But one of the things that I was concerned with was what went on the roof to be compatible, not only with the structure, which is there, but also with what's behind us. And that is the beauty of the forest on the mountain, which is literally just a stone's throw from my back door. Actually, we're right there, as you probably know.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if this would mean anything to you, but I'm not saying this from an amateur's viewpoint. I'm a designer. Everybody in this room has seen my work, but you don't know it. May I tell you?
You may.
You don't happen to know that guy Indiana Jones?
Mhm.
I designed Indiana Jones. 2 years before the film was made, I got a call from Spielberg and Lucas. And they said, we don't know what this guy looks like. We've been working with him, working on this story for about 2 years already. But we don't know what he looks like. Can you help us? Is the Pope Catholic? So I created a series of what's called production paintings that visualize Indy based on conversations that I had with Spielberg and Lucas. I went out there for a week and, spent time talking to them and reading their notes, their script fragments and so forth. So I'm coming to you from a professional design standpoint. And the guy that I worked with at Greenwald, his name is Brandon, as you know. Brandon, I spent a lot of time determining what kind of shingles, what kind of texture and color, not only the quality of it, because I want that roof to stay there for a while. And it's a hell of a thing to say because I'm going to be 85 years old this year. And, I don't know how long I'll be here, but I want my roof to last longer than me. Is that fair? I guess. And after giving it considerable consideration, those were the shingles and the colors that I thought would be compatible, not only with what was there now or previously, but what was appropriate for the environment around that building. And I don't know if this means anything to you or not, or to the Historical Society. I think your main goal is to replace with what was already there. And I like that idea a lot. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. However, the architect who designed the building and the construction people who built it did not have the variety of materials that we have today. And I'm really concerned with putting something on that house that conforms with the neighborhood and also is compatible with what's on my neighbor's roof. I think that's a significant concern too.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
Is this roof replacement part of an insurance claim?
I'm sorry.
Is there an insurance claim associated with this project?
Brandon talked to my insurance company about it. It's a little complicated because the insurance company was involved in the replacement of the turret slate, except their payment was nowhere near the $7,000 that he charged.
Okay.
You know, you've been through this many times, you know the drill. And Brandon, said that he thought he might be able to get them to bend a bit. And I gave him the information. He's been working with them. I think we're gonna get some kind of partial payment. But the roofing that, or the replacement material that the Historical Society is suggesting is going to cost me over $5,000 more than his original estimate to use the shingles that he and I thought would be appropriate. $5,000's a lot of money.
So in that case, this would be scenario 3 under the roofing guidelines. Although I'm not sure that it's particularly relevant because this is an asphalt for asphalt replacement. So the only question for us is the type of asphalt shingle that's being proposed, and if the applicant's proposed shingle doesn't meet the requirements of the board, and a different shingle does, the cost difference may be somewhat negligible. Especially given the fact that there isn't a partial insurance reimbursement. So we can go through the effort of typically under what I'm referring to as scenario 3 in the roofing guidelines. There are 6 submittal requirements that we would consider. Those guidelines were developed right after the hailstorm. And immediately the next month, we had 14 applications for roof replacement and no policy.
No surprise there.
So at that time, we drafted this policy and we came up with 5 different scenarios, all the possible scenarios that someone could come to the board with, and they all hinged on the insurance reimbursement. So in your case, you're falling under scenario 3, which is a partial reimbursement. And because of the reimbursement, typically what we would ask the applicant to submit would be a copy of their policy, the quote for the roofing replacement, and you can read them. This is all online, but there's financial information that goes into whether or not we would approve it. But since you're replacing asphalt for asphalt, I think, and everybody feel free to chime in, but my position would be that a recommendation to use a shingle that has more of it's designed to look like slate, because your home, your property originally had slate shingles. And so that would be in alignment with the Secretary of Interior standards. It's mimicking the original size, design, not necessarily the material, but the scale of what your original shingles would have been.
I see.
Basically getting the slate without having the slate up there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
Get the slate look without a
Yeah.
slate.
You're talking about slate line.
Yes.
Correct.
Now, had your original roof been slate, this would be a different discussion.
Of course. And actually, I would have no idea what the original looked like. I've been looking at this one, for decades already.
That's what we do here is we try to guide the homeowners along those ways, because when you look at a home, I mean, the original context of how the home looks, that is where it's gonna have its highest value. Okay, so when people come in here and they start putting vinyl windows in when they shouldn't have vinyl windows on it, when that wasn't there, or looks completely inappropriate for the way the building originally looked, you're taking away from the value of it, whether you realize it or not. So some of these are very delicate conversations to get, don't get me wrong. I mean, I certainly understand, I'm a homeowner myself and I have the same situations that you got. So I understand that. But when you look at the homes that we have here, we have quite a treasure of historical properties in the town, in the city of Reading. Most of the homes that were built in this town were built somewhere in the neighborhood between 1870 and 1920, 1930.
1893 with this
Oh,
one.
then I'm right there on the ball plate. So there you go. So when you look at that, and now granted, of course, now there's a lot of the money that was, available for some of that stuff, or the materials, like you were saying. There was things that were styled and things that were in style, stained glass in houses, et cetera, right down the line. That all adds to the value of the home. Okay, so it's when the homes are in the historic districts, it's our job to try and guide the homeowner to make sure that they keep the value of their home up and keep it looking historically intact, because that's where it's gonna have its best value.
That's mandatory. I believe in that idea very much.
I mean, if you have a home that's, a brick home and someone decided to put the stucco over the side of it, that's not good. I mean, that's not really good at all. I mean, and that just makes things.
Not in this circumstance.
And that just,
anyway.
it's gonna take that side index level, where you have a high side index, it's gonna go right down below. And then that side index goes with everything else that goes along with it, real estate value for the property, et cetera, right down the line. So that's what we're here to try and guide the homeowners with.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
The material on my neighbor's roof cannot be seen from any position outside the building, or in for that matter. And only a part of my building can be seen, but only from one viewpoint, and that is standing on the southeast corner of City Park. That 5-way intersection. Standing in the park on that corner, you can see approximately a third of my roof, but from a half a block away. When you're in the yard, you can hardly see the roof at all on the property because of the pitch of it. So whatever is put on it is almost incidental, because it's very difficult to see. Additionally, not this year, but last year, during a fall hurricane. This is not Texas. Hurricanes in Pennsylvania, unbelievable. A hurricane blew down a 100-year-old tree that was closest to the house.
When you say that, I just take right back to the thought process of a couple of years ago, when we had a very bad storm come through here and it blew down a couple of rather significantly large trees in Charles Evans Cemetery, which 3 days prior, I had my picture taken and leaned up against one, so I know where I blew down now, so. But, that was a massive tree and the wind blew it over, so. That could happen at any point.
I know, the loss of a 100-year-old tree that you have learned to love and spend a lot of time with.
Yeah.
It cannot be replaced. I planted other trees, but while I'm here, I have a question for you. I've been talking to Lester, the arborist of the city. When I moved into this area, the street was lined with beautiful trees, old, beautiful trees. And it overhung, the street and gave it real character. But more than just character, it gave it a relatively elegant and distinctive quality. I don't have to tell you that, you know it much better than I do, that trees make a complete difference in the nature of the environment. I'm guessing some of the trees were so old that branches somewhere here or there, must have fell down onto some cars, and every tree in the block was cut down. I think there were 5 of them in one block.
You know when they were cut?
Now the street the area looks naked.
Do you know when they were cut? Do you know when they were cut?
When they were cut?
Yeah.
I would say they were easily cut 20-25 years ago. And I called up Lester just within the past month and I said, I think I'd like to have trees come back, at least on my part of the property. Because I still have ground next to the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the curb. That's where those trees were. I said, I'd like to plant 3 or 4 trees. He said, well, that will be on you. That's your business. But I'm just wondering, since I'm here and in your presence, would I have to? Would I have to get a permit for that?
Through Lester, Lester would be able to provide you with the process, but the HARB does not review landscaping, it's not under their purview, so.
Okay, I don't have to find out what trees were previously there and match them, do I?
No.
Yeah.
But I do
I'm
believe.
I'm sorry. I
I
apologize.
think he recommends.
Yes, he
Yeah.
has a list of urban street trees that are appropriate.
Sidewalks
and stuff Right.
like that.
Well, I've worked with Lester for a long time. He's a sharp guy, so I
Yeah.
trust him. I like him.
No, he's,
So I have a question about the roofing. Do we have any pictorial evidence as to what the original roof looks like? The type of shingle that was there?
I do not know. No, I did.
We don't know if it was a square shingle or a scalloped.
I don't know. And I did not. I didn't research, I mean, I didn't look at the 1978 file, but I can probably guess it was this roof on it, the 3-tip, because this looks like it's been on since the 1970s. How long have you owned the property?
About 40 years.
Okay. And you've never replaced the roof?
I think we may have replaced it, but it's so long ago, it's very tough for me to remember. There's a lot to take care of on that.
I would probably have to say it was probably that scallop slate.
But that's what I would think it would be originally because of what's on the tower.
So is it worth considering giving the option for like a carriage house, like a scalloped asphalt shingle as opposed to just?
Are they even available anymore? I looked at
It's
that,
limited.
I looked at that a year ago and it wasn't,
It's not,
yeah.
but maybe it's some other asphalt with a
Yeah.
scallop shape as opposed to just the square edge.
Yes, I can't think of the name right now, but there are shingles that do have that like a rounded corner, but they are going to be in the same price point as the GAF slate line. They're all about equal. And we get a lot of requests, or I get a lot of requests for the asphalt architectural shingle because they're less expensive and more readily available.
Well, I'm sure you said the other property was approved in 2015. right?
2015, yes.
At that time, roof replacements were under heavy scrutiny.
Yeah,
So I'm sure we looked at every possible angle and documentation, and either there was already that type of shingle there,
yes.
or the circumstances warranted approval of that because of, you know, whatever was going on there, but I think for this, my recommendation would be slate line or a scallop shingle that mimics the look of a scallop slate. And that if something other than that is to be considered, that we would need to evaluate financial hardship.
Yeah, I only recommended this, or the slate line, and told the contractor that I could approve the slate line at staff level only because what's on there now is the 3-tab, so it'd be matching. And actually, the slate line is, I think, well, it's a better shingle than the one that's being proposed, I think. I mean, I think it has longer warranty.
May I ask Brandon, who you've already been in contact with, to get your recommendation? That be okay?
Sure.
And I'm wondering one other thing, we just covered this, but did not what was on my neighbor's roof set a precedent? That seems to be like set aside now. Could I match what they have with something similar or the same?
It's a good question because I understand why, you know, the
It's
houses
just
that are
semi-detached.
joined, it makes sense to continue the same roofing. I don't know, without going back, we'd have to sift through the resolution
Well,
archive.
it was a staff approval,
It
so,
was.
yeah.
So
I-
it must have been in kind.
Yes, that's the only way that I believe, but I can't remember offhand, but that,
Ms. Johnson's not allowed to approve a roof replacement without it being an in-kind replacement. So they must have had that type of shingle previously.
I would say that's a pretty good guess.
But I understand why you would want to carry that. Unfortunately, it would be perpetuating an appearance that's not historically appropriate.
Usually, the type of shingle that you're proposing is found on older homes in the city, like below Penn Street, that might be more federal in style and early homes, like from the 1700s, where they would have put wood shake roofs on, and there are a couple still, or at least one on South Fifth Street that actually still has a wood shake roof. And they found under, like, when they've removed the layers of standing seam roofs, they've actually found original wood shake shingles on roofs in those properties south of Penn.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think it is.
Or shingle style properties. There aren't many in
yeah.
Reading, but around the turn of the century, Bruce Price, Tuxedo Park, that was a big movement. Frank Lloyd Wright even got involved in it with his own house, but they would have had cedar shakes and shingles. But Reading doesn't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
We're more Victorian, the
Slate.
Reading German style, which was the Pennsylvania slate.
Right.
Exactly. 1893, I can almost guarantee it was.
Yeah.
You said it was 1893 was your home was built?
I'm sorry?
Your home was built in 1893?
Yes,
Yeah, I would bet money that it was like.
but that was even before I was born, so don't ask me too much about that. I'm a sensitive guy.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I'm gonna ask a question. If we were to deny the application with a recommendation for the slate line, would that preclude the applicant coming back with financial hardship consideration? They can't come back with the same application, but I don't wanna jump the gun if that's in the process.
My immediate thought is no, because anybody should be able to return with financial hardship application if it's warranted.
In which case we can table it if that's something that was going to be considered.
Were you gonna consider the financial hardship application if you're denied with what you want?
I would consider taking that route if you would advise it.
Ms.
It
Johnson
sounds
would.
like you might do that, and I can tell you this. Over the last 10 years, things have been really tough. My wife is gone. My son's now at a personal care home. All my dogs are gone. All my friends are gone, my family. It's been really tough. And you know, I don't think what COVID did with us financially, you know, it's not it hasn't been an easy time.
So our option would be then, if you wanted to pursue that, we could table this and allow you more time to generate the documentation for us to consider financial hardship. My only caution would be, we can't make any guarantees because the cost difference between the two different types of shingles is very small. It may not change the financial hardship equation very much. And in that case, that could be a wasted effort,
Yeah,
but it may not, I don't know.
and in this situation, as I pointed out earlier, time is.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Now,
I'm really afraid what's gonna happen in the winter.
Mr. Booth, for you to fill out that financial hardship application, does this have to be a primary residence?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think that's taken
So
into consideration.
you don't live in this home?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, I
don't
thought you
quite
had
look
talked
at it,
to.
But I do all the work there, all the grounds work, cut the hedges. When you drive by there next time and you see those hedges straight as an arrow.
I had thought that you had said that this was more storage for you, this property. earlier. I
no,
thought
I
that's
don't-
what you said, but this is your primary residence.
And if you go back and talk to Greenwald Roofing and discuss the recommendations that have been made, like the GAF slate line and or a comparable shingle that looks like a scallop slate shingle. And if you determine that it's something that you can do, I can approve that at staff level and wouldn't require you to do anything further.
That would save you time too.
That would save you time. And you'd literally be able to start whenever. It's just it's the design of the shingle is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
And
that
what's
really
sort of
surprised me when because I've never heard the term, I wanted to be an architect when I was a kid, but I never heard the term an architectural shingle. I learned something.
It's an oxymoron, trust us.
I have a question for you, I'm gonna change the subject. How often are you mistaken for Andrew McGonigal, I think his name is? Who's that actor?
McConaughey? Or no, that's Matthew.
McConaughey, yeah.
McConaughey.
No one's ever told me.
I don't know if I believe that, but.
I get on Redmayne a lot, but
Oh, yeah.
um, yeah, so I don't know if that is even going to be worth the effort if time is critical to you, but you know, unfortunately, the standard that we has to follow is that it matches the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. So the part where we're getting hung up is the design and the texture, that shape, you know, of the slate shingle as opposed to a wood shape.
I see, and you know, it's like, you know, does a tree fall if nobody hears it in the woods? Because nobody can see these roofs without actually getting up, you know, 3 stories on a ladder to check out the design of it. So it's the reason for that happening, it seems a little lightweight for me, you know, to put what was there before, because hardly anybody gets to see it anyway. If I were gonna spend that money, I'd much prefer to spend it on something else that people would really, you know, look at more.
I'm sorry, I failed to mention, there is another option here. Your existing shingles are 3-tab, which is the least expensive shingle that exists. And because that's what you have now, you could propose a 3-tab shingle and Ms. Johnson could approve it without coming to the board.
Is that what it's called, a 3-tab shingle?
And do it now, because they are getting rid of those, they're not making them anymore.
That would make it quick and easy for you.
ABC has them, I know that, out on 61.
That would make it really quick and really.
Yes.
easy.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that
Yeah.
earlier.
And I did
Save it,
tell
save it out.
It's only important that you thought of it now.
And I did
Thank
tell the contractor that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I'm gonna send Brandon a note tonight. And I will make that recommendation to him, but I don't wanna put a cheap shingle on there that isn't going to protect the house. That's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. I don't want that new roof to go bad, you know, in 5 years.
I think most 3-tab shingles, you're gonna get a 25-year warranty, which is, I mean, even on your flat roof, if you were to put rubber roofing where your flat roof is, you're not gonna get more than 25 years out of that, so. It's kind of standard, and you can go up from there, but obviously the longer the warranty, the higher the cost.
I understand, and I think that's something worth discussing. And I'm gonna do that.
Should we recommend a color? I think does it only come in black now? Oh, and gray, black and gray, yeah.
It depends on the manufacturer, but I mean, there's many manufacturers of 3-tab shingles. That used to be the standard.
I just did some investigating for, and it's 2 colors that they have left, that they're still, because they're discontinuing the 3-tab, excuse me.
What manufacturer was it?
What's that?
Can't remember, but it was at
It's in
ABC
my car.
that you
Yes.
So I don't know if any other if there is any other outlet for 3-tab, which there might be.
But again, that could be approved at staff
Yeah.
level, it's not,
Right,
something we
right.
wouldn't even have to.
Right,
recommend
true,
at all.
true, yeah, I didn't think of that.
A slate gray would be recommended. If they have a slate gray color.
I'm pretty sure they do, the variety seems to be significant these days. I've looked at a number of catalogs and it's almost everything your heart could desire,
Okay.
except maybe maroon or pink, I'm not sure.
So then,
So this is a big motion or really narrow.
So yeah, if we were to deny it, does that close the door on financial hardship consideration? I think if you still wanted to pursue that, we would table the motion. If you're saying you don't want to look at financial hardship, then we would deny it and you can come back to Amy with an application for 3-tab or one of the ones that we had talked about.
yeah, I don't think he's.
May I-
Hardship, actually, so.
May I take the time to discuss this and get Brandon's opinion and see what he has available, what options we have?
Sure.
And get back to you on this.
Yeah, and then we would table.
We'll table it.
Yep.
Appreciate you taking this time to spend with me very much. It's been
Very
very
on the table.
Somebody has to make a
Yeah,
motion.
motion to table it.
I'll make a motion to table the request for 1403 Hill Street, Hill Road, Hill Street. Hill Road, table the application for the homeowner to confer with his roofer on the 3-tab shingle that we've had proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Polachek,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Johnson will be in touch once you contact her about after you talk with your contractor, your roofer, okay?
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
for putting up with me. I don't know how to do it. You guys are just great.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks.
very nice to meet
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
You
Have a
too.
good night.
Okay, now we gotta go backwards. So we have to go back to 300 South Fish Street.
This is 300 South Fifth Street, and the proposal is a request for the painting of exterior masonry and wood surfaces with a master protect acrylic coating that's breathable. And the standards that apply to this project are standards 2, 5, and 6, as I read earlier. And just to give you a little bit more background, the owner, you've been provided with all of the specifications for the paint. I did speak with the owner and she wasn't sure that she'd be able to come tonight, but I did explain to her that the executive committee had spoken with a a painting contractor during the meeting, who's reputable, and he actually recommended not using this paint and to use just a regular exterior paint for masonry. I did tell her that, and I told her to research that, but I haven't heard back from her. So she seemed to be open to that. She said to me that this is a very durable paint, which she's proposing. This property has had peeling paint for many, many years, and I don't know if codes has mandated her to paint it, I'm not sure, but generally peeling paint is a code violation.
How did she find this product, just out of curiosity? I mean, this is a good product
Is it?
for
Okay.
exterior coatings. This is, Master Builder Solutions was BAFS.
Oh, okay.
And, but I don't know if it's going to work without removing all the existing paint.
Right.
And I tried, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I tried to take a picture, I mean, I looked at several spots on the building and I the best picture that I took to show. To best show what's there now is it looks like that new side paint. But this is checked red paint underneath it, so it was originally painted with regular exterior paint.
I walked by it enough over the weekend, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had gone down there too, and to identify if it's paint or some kind of like coating, and it's definitely
They
paint.
used to use air spray.
What?
If you remember that product, air spray,
No.
it was like, they'd spray on it, it was like a thick coating of paint.
Yeah, this is a
That-
thinner
that-
layer,
Seems to peel off like that.
and what the executive committee thought was maybe that there's a lot of moisture getting in there. And a lot of the mortar is missing, so, we were thinking that's why they wanted this heavy duty type, coating over this. But we were also afraid that it would take away from the detail of the brick on the side, having such a heavy. And I think the contractor said that it would not, but depending on is there different levels of that coating, like as far as thicknesses?
I don't know as far as thicknesses, but there were 3 different textures.
Yes, there was the textures there, yeah.
But is the owner proposing a textured finish?
Yes.
The smooth, it comes in.
But it's still,
She said she wanted the smooth finish, but there's smooth, fine, and coarse.
but
Yeah, I
You wanna
don't
see
think I
it?
would be able to see a smooth finish, because no matter what you do with that, it's gonna still take away the detail of actually knowing that it was brick there. That's the thing.
Well, what's on there now? You really see a brick detail,
Not in some places, I mean, yes,
I mean, where brick's exposed, yeah.
yeah, right. And I mean, yeah, it would be sort of like a painting in kind. But because it is an elastomeric coating, and because the building is in the state that it's in, I didn't think that I could approve it at staff level.
It's 6 to 11 mils, that's like a heavy duty trash bag in terms of thickness.
Probably the new air spray.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And I'm
it's,
not saying air. I'm saying air.
I'm not familiar with that product,
That's an
but
old one, that's,
acrylic products are ubiquitous now for coating over masonry. I mean, obviously, I think it's the wrong approach for any masonry building. The masonry should be restored. You repoint the mortar joints and let it be masonry again. But in this case, it was previously painted, so we can't really deny that.
Right.
But I would say if they want to use this product, what I was gonna say is we should require the removal of the existing paint.
So that would be definitely, no matter what they do, that should be the first thing that should be done, is removal of as much of the existing paint as possible.
Right, so here's the challenge though.
You get it all off, why put anything back on?
Well, no, not that. You're gonna have the same issue with regular paint. There's obviously an adhesion problem on that existing coating.
Yeah.
And if you don't take it off, even if you just paint it, again, probably still gonna have issues. So I don't know that putting that caveat in there, only associated with this particular product, is necessarily going to serve the function.
so it looks like heck.
And has for many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite honest.
And could we say that making the removal of the existing paint a recommendation rather than a requirement?
I'd say a recommendation, yeah. And there's gonna be a lot of that loose stuff that's gonna have to get removed anyway. one way or the other. I mean, that's
And that's
just the way
well
it has to
scraped
be.
and
Right.
Yeah. But you don't have to take every blessed, you know, if there's some of it that's still sticking, I don't think that's something that you're gonna have to necessarily,
probably like power wash it,
yeah.
you get most of it all.
So that's the
Still watch
distinction,
without
because there are different methods of paint removal. They can do a chemical removal,
Mhm.
they can do a media blast, they can do water blast, they can do steam.
In a historic district, you're only allowed so many PSI for power washing, correct?
Yeah, they're-
I was
It's a
told
low
that.
pressure, yeah, low
Right.
PSI.
Low
Right.
pressure
Yeah.
for any type of washing.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what-
historic, because it would hurt the brick or stone, it would.
what's meant to be avoided is sandblasting, any kind of abrasive blasting.
Yeah.
Aggressive chemicals or high pressure water wash.
Right.
But what do we feel as far as what's the recommended? You coat traditional paint for an exterior masonry building, or are we not? Look at what they're proposing.
Well, what's interesting is this has so many coats of paint already on it. That's at least 10 mils right there.
That's
So I don't think it's gonna really change the appearance.
Okay.
But is it a good thing to, to have that many coats? Probably not. You know, it's a judgment call, but essentially what they're proposing is repainting the property. What product they
You can't,
use,
that's right, you can't deny them, to repaint the property.
Will this last longer than this, I would
That's
assume,
if it's done correctly.
than regular paint, or exterior?
So we want to prove it then, that way. If we want to prove it, then I would make that motion, that's the case.
Due to the fact that it already has the new side coating. I would say that should be part of the motion.
Part of the motion would also be that the existing paint would have to be removed before we recommend it to be removed. We actually would have to say that.
That's your
We don't have a
motion.
breakdown of the contractor's proposal that would say whether they're going to do that in the
No.
process.
She only gave me the product info. And then I looked up more info online. She did, let me, okay.
And you would think that, a reasonable painting contractor would do that, they would, definitely just go up there.
You
She
would think.
No, it's a big assumption,
In
but
the perfect world.
If I were hired to write a spec for this project, I would call for the removal of all the coatings. It's the only way to get an even half decent prep job.
She said it's the hand, on the application, it says hand scrape all loose and peeling coating.
that's all they would do, they scrape it.
I think the only way you can word it is to remove as much of the existing coating as possible using the least aggressive method possible. That kind of leaves it open-ended, but I think it gets the point across.
I would say that as my motion, and I can add that wording that Aaron just said. As far as removal of the paint would be the least aggressive method possible.
You say the least abrasive,
Least aggressive.
aggressive.
Least
Yeah.
aggressive. You feel it, Grace, like you said it is. That would be my motion.
Someone want to second that?
I'll second.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Mr. Polotica,
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Let me go back to.
This is the best.
Oh, that wasn't the last one.
I don't know if we really should be doing this last one to, with no one here. I mean, because that's a discussion.
And they chose not to show up, so this is what we do,
What's the next one?
1506 North 15th Street. And
The deck ones.
yeah.
let me do my regular thing here and then discuss. So this is 1506 North 15th Street, and it's to review the request for the construction of a wood deck, and the deck has been completed. And the Secretary of Interior standards that apply to this project are numbers 2, 5, and 6, of which I read previously. And just to give you a little bit of background, this actually came in as a violation in 2020. And the zoning office was taking the lead at the time with reviewing the installation of the deck, because the deck does encroach over into the neighbors. Well, not in the neighbor's property, but it encroaches over the setback line. And I can't remember what it is, 3 or 4 feet.
It's 4 feet.
Is it
I think
more?
it's 4 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they encroach, so. With COVID and everything, it kind of got pushed aside, but it's still in violation. So I suggested to the zoning office that I would take the lead and put it before the HARB, because the HARB is not so much concerned about the size of the deck, but the materials used. And it never went to a board meeting, but the executive committee had discussed it, and the comments that I gave you in the executive committee comments were the comments from back then. So it was more about the materials and the style of the railing, the use of the lattice. I do always warn everyone in my informational email to them that if there is not a representative at the meeting, the board can table their review, or deny it, or make a decision for the owner.
Didn't we do a deck up in that neighborhood in the past, just not that long ago, kind of similar almost?
There have been decks in the past, I don't know, not on the ground like that, not.
Cause this looks somewhat familiar. I thought we did a deck up in that neighborhood that was like kind of similar to this.
There's been, yeah, there might have been.
Yeah, the side of the house, it was like
Yes.
kind of the same thing.
Yes, and there was one where the back of the house was higher, like off the ground, and so it was.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah, that one I did,
there.
but now this one was actually ground level, kind of like it was
yeah.
this side. I kind of remember that a couple of years ago,
Yes.
a year or two ago or so.
So once he can work simultaneously, of course, with the HARB, but he hasn't. And I did explain to him that his choice is gonna either be according to what the zoning office, decision is he either will have to reduce the size of the deck, or, appeal their decision to the zoning hearing board. But the HARB needs to review it for the materials as it was built.
So it looks like they used pressure treated lumber and stained it, which is not something that we would typically approve. 'Cause
Correct, we do recommend painting or staining. Well, I believe the board has approved pressure treated lumber, but one of the main issues is the style of the railing. And the railing should be like a true railing with the spindles between the top and bottom rail. I have many people come to me and wanna put this
Yeah.
style of railing up, and I tell them it's not gonna be approved.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's one thing we can tell them, that would not be approved by our standards anyway, so that's a start. Size of the deck obviously is the other part, and that's
That's
more,
exactly.
So,
that's a zoning issue there, so.
and just from.
Well, I guess why I brought the other property up is what did we approve in that aspect with the,
Oh, I'd have to.
that's kind of what I was kind of, we can make this kind of simple because we did a similar one of these. And I do know we approved what we did at that time. I kind of remember that.
Right.
So that would be kind of simple as to what we actually had done at that point in time.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a duplicate of that. Actually, we don't have to really sit here and beat our brains out,
Right.
you know.
And in my professional opinion, if I may add, I do agree with what you said earlier. That it may, even though the board has the right to deny or to make whatever decision. In this case, I think the owner should be here to
Well, why isn't it?
be forward. No, that's true, that's
Well,
true, I'm just
That may be
saying,
an actual protest, or even if we table it, are they ever going to?
Yeah.
that's true,
exactly.
yes. He
Well,
may-
if
he
they,
may try
if
to.
we table it, that would give Ms. Johnson a little bit of time to consider what we did approve in the other one. And then we can bring it back up.
It doesn't
It doesn't
matter
show
what
up.
we approved before with the rule.
Well, we don't have to figure it out now this time. We can just go by what we did the last time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But the spindles, the.
What did we
state-
approve? Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with the HARB's deck policies. And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, it's not a bad looking deck.
But
You know, I
it's
can
not an
understand,
issue.
you know, pressure treated versus regular wood and stuff like that, but even though it's pressure treated, it was stained, which is gonna give the same appearance as if it were regular wood stained or painted. Just tell me what's wrong with this deck.
So my take on it is this style of railing was popularized in the 70s and 80s as part of the late mid-century modern movement. The sea ranch, stained wood siding aesthetic, and but a modern take on that, right? So these straight balusters with chamfered edge became really popular then. My parents had one.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't go with
That's
the
what
house
I'm
because
saying.
the house was neo-colonial. But for whatever reason, this was the thing to do.
Well, that's it. When people want a deck, it's like, this is what they want.
And
Right.
it's a cheap railing to install.
Yes, it's inexpensive, it's easy, but this house, I would say this house has more of a craftsman bungalow
Yeah.
influence, albeit the Reading take on that. So, no, I don't think it's historically appropriate for the house, but I mean, could it be appropriate for some house in College Heights? Maybe. I know there are houses up there that are mid-century that it might look decent on.
If these people wanted to put a deck on, what would be the correct deck?
So I start to look at like, what are the porch columns, the existing rail around the porch, it looks like it's masonry. So that would be an option, the masonry wall. Those columns, they look to me like they might be a Tuscan border, so. You know, a more traditional turned baluster that has more of like a columnar appearance. Could be an option.
This house is so pretty, it has the original leaded glass door
Really.
and leaded glass transoms, and it's really pretty.
Is
It's
it,
all intact,
is this deck behind the house or
no, it's on
Side of it.
the side of it?
side, yeah. And it's set back. And then it goes, this is from the back of the house, It extends, this wall was here before, but they kind of has 2 levels to it.
That is would be appropriate either, so.
The lattice is a real problem,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not even appropriate to the deck,
Yeah.
no.
let alone the house.
And the owner, I should add too, the owner has repeatedly said he built it during COVID when you couldn't come into City Hall and get a building permit, so that was his excuse for that.
It's a good project for COVID.
That's a good excuse to play book there, that's for sure.
And it was 2020.
Right, so what are our options here? I mean, if it seems like nobody would approve the deck, right?
No.
But we can't base our determination on zoning. The fact that it's not in compliance with zoning doesn't necessarily mean
The only,
it isn't in compliance with preservation.
the only thing we're determining is the materials used.
That we could actually
They can make
deny,
it tear half of it down, zoning, after we determine that they have to put spindles on and paint it or do masonry. Masonry. So tired.
That's an interesting scenario though, like what if they said you have to tear down 4
They
feet
will.
of this porch?
They-
And
did you
and then
see-
the applicant wants to keep the rest of it.
Did you see how close they built that deck to the house next door?
Yeah,
It's
pretty-
like
It's right up
literally,
against the sidewalk.
yeah,
we could deny the deck. Materials used currently and obviously with the tie to the zoning aspect of it, that any new deck would have to be resubmitted for approval of materials.
Yeah.
yeah,
That
but
would
then
be-
we're just doing double the work. I mean,
Well, what else are we
let's
gonna
just
do?
knock it out. Let's just knock it out now, pick the materials. And then let them figure it out and be done with it.
Is it just the railing that we have an issue with?
The only thing that the board, I think the executive committee had an issue with was at the tops of the posts, there is lights in the posts.
Yeah. But that's part of the railing.
Yeah.
But what I'm
Sounds
getting
right,
at
you're
is,
right, you're
if they were to take off the railing, resize the framing for the porch part. And then put a new railing on,
Right.
that might be like the happy compromise
Right.
to meet everybody's requirements.
And my thought process is if the board determines what the appropriate materials are and zoning makes him reduce it and he goes that route and just reduces it, then he'd just be reducing it and reinstalling railing on the side. So we'd be giving him, approval for whatever materials and nothing. There would be no further discussion needed.
And the railing is definitely problematic, but you gotta be careful what you wish for here. I'm looking at the photo of the back of the property, and there's another type of railing there that's even less historically appropriate.
Oh, the glass, I just saw that, the
Yeah.
glass and yeah. But the board in the Heights doesn't look at improvements such as that, but you are correct. If this is, but the deck is considered an addition, and I think it is. Listed,
It's so large,
it is.
this deck. I mean, is that in and of itself a historical consideration? Is it historically appropriate to make half of your
Your
yard
yard,
deck?
right.
I don't know that I've ever seen that in that area.
Did you see it the other way, from the other direction, where it's up? From the other side, it's actually on a retaining wall.
Yeah, that's what
like-
he was looking at.
Oh,
And this is
yeah.
the inappropriate
Okay. I didn't see
railing,
that
yeah,
picture.
yeah, I never noticed that rail. I mean, it does,
Like a railing go along the steps to the,
yeah, in the back.
It's a really steep stairway.
it is. It's like one of the old pipe railings.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's say we deny the railing aspect. They deal with the zoning issue by cutting it back 4 feet and then put a new railing on here. Would that satisfy everyone's concerns?
What about making a recommendation of what material to use? If the railing's inappropriate, what's the board gonna suggest?
Yeah, I think we have to. I could see 2 options here. In the Craftsman, the Reading flavor of Craftsman vein. I know my old house had on the interior square balusters, just like the pagoda. It was the same rail detail as the
Right.
pagoda.
Right,
Square balusters, square newel post.
right.
And we had round columns out front. I mean, that was sort of the style. But that could work out here, and then they're gonna say, well, we have square balusters. But you know what I'm talking about. I could find some images.
Between the top and bottom rail.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a different spacing. It's actually a different size square section. And the top and bottom rail would have a bit of profile.
Are you recommending something similar to what's at the apartment building? Fifth and Ole Street, Fifth and Ole. Yeah, top and bottom, square.
Kind of. They
Not that
sort of
high.
did it, but it's not exact.
And no lattice work
Right.
included.
So that could be one option. A turned baluster could be another option, but I think the newel posts are actually problematic in this case.
What do you want them to be, round,
Not necessarily.
turn? No,
No.
Well, it's square now. Can you see
yeah,
this?
they're square.
Yeah.
Looks like it's like a 4x4 or something like that.
So you're not okay with that, or you are?
I think those are problematic because it's just a piece of lumber,
Right.
but I'm not necessarily opposed to a square section post. It just needs a little detail.
And the lighting?
Those are solar, aren't they? Aren't those
Yeah,
like
so they-
solar collectors? They were. Yeah, I think there's better ways of harvesting daylight, but there's so much shade there. Are they really getting it?
Right, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, I
And
could,
this is almost 4 years ago, so I'm not sure if it don't even work.
I mean, it's hard to take a picture showing it because the tree is shading, like when it's even hard to see because the tree shade. From far away.
I thought I had some pictures of an appropriate railing, but I don't. I don't know, how does the rest of the board feel that, would you approve something like that?
Yeah. Mainly the railing and the last.
HARB is approved by the treated wood, then, but typically the HARB requires that the wood be. It is over. Constructed railing is not historically appropriate. The railing should have a true top and bottom rail with the spindles mounted between them.
Oh, I did right here, 4-foot side yard setback.
Glass panels in the ground may be considered an inappropriate design. Glass panels be placed in
Well, there's a photo. We've done this before.
Oh, yes, that would be appropriate.
It's actually an inch and 7/8 by an inch and 7/8, and the spacing is 3.5 inches. That's what's at the pagoda, and it's throughout Reading,
And what's the spacing?
3.5 inches.
So the posts are attached right to the bottom and the top.
Right, they die into the top and bottom railing as opposed to being attached to the face of the railings.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it where they have a top plate
Yes,
and then they take the railings and they put like a piece of wood on each side and then that gets. So it looks like this when it's done. In other words, that's your top plate there, and then there's one on each side of the post.
Mhm.
And then the bottom rail is just,
yeah. I actually think that bottom rail is not as robust as it could be, but. I mean, we
I
can,
can see something like that.
we could do staff level recommendations too for this.
I think you had sent me something.
This was an email
With
to you.
railing.
This was back in January of this year.
I feel like you gave me other information at some point about railings. Yes, I have that somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Or if you're. you
So
can
that
just-
website has off the shelf traditional railing components. Top rails, bottom rails, and all the turn balusters that fit. And it's like a system, so the bottom rail has like a little gable on it.
What's the website?
It's called vintagewoodworks.com. Some of these are too Victorian or decorative for this property.
It should be craftsman, like you said.
I-
Simple,
Well, not necessarily craftsman, but
but simpler.
yeah. I don't know what you call that style. It's definitely a Reading
Yeah.
style, but it's a mixture of sort of neo-colonial mixed with craftsman style.
Yeah. Because the fluted
Reading craftsman.
columns.
There you go,
Yeah.
Reading craftsman. Really what it is, it's a mannerist version of Victorian architecture, but it's just a very simple, kind of humble way of approaching.
Now look at the time frame when the building was built.
Yeah.
As in the Victorian era, that was all empty field over there at that time.
Well, what was the date on this building?
I didn't get a
If I
chance
have to
to.
guess, I'd have to say it was somewhere between the 20s and the 40s.
Yeah, it's Depression era,
Yeah.
and I think that's why a lot of that architecture was so simple. And my house was built my one in East Reading was 41,
Oh, okay.
so. Nothing fancy, but it, had a stained glass transom and it had some nice.
I know.
lighting.
Still jealous. One for.
I'd stained glass in my house over in Moton.
One half of the block of the entire city is unlit.
So someone needs to make a motion.
Thought that was your motion.
It's hard to use the name.
No, I need it again here.
I make a motion and it's the same thing that Aaron just said.
So for the approval of the deck,
For the approval,
but with the alteration, or do you want to say the denial?
Denial.
For the denial, sorry.
Denial of the materials used.
as.
Of the
completed.
entire deck, are we denying the entire deck?
That's what I'm wondering.
Just the.
That's why I
railings.
was thinking approval of the deck with
We
the
can't-
exception
We
of
just
the denial.
we're gonna deny the size of the deck?
We can't, that's a zoning
That was
issue.
zoning.
That
We'll
would
leave
be
that for the-
zoning.
And it should say that that the HARB approval is contingent on zoning approval.
Okay, but then we're actually denying, do we have any problem with the construction material? That is the pressure treated stain?
Well, that's a good question with respect to the decking. That's another discussion too, because typically we would be calling for tongue and groove. In this case, it's just pressure treated lumber.
In the conservation district, is it different there as far as the regular
Yeah,
historic
That's a
district?
good point too. It's conservation.
I'm
doesn't
almost-
exist, historic district.
True.
Certain that the board has approved pressure treated wood decks like this at two other spots.
Pushing to that one that
Yeah.
we did approve.
If it was
We
not
actually approved.
existent
Yeah.
and created, if it was something that is already existing that had tongue and groove, I would say that. It would have to be
Sure.
replaced in
Yeah.
kind.
So then
Yeah, so it
then
might-
our only issue would be with
The railing.
the material on the railing.
Right. And Mr. Booth had made some recommendations that it be.
Neo Reading, whatever it was.
Yeah, what'd you call it?
Reading crafts.
There you go.
Craftsman.
It was top, bottom. 3.5 inch. What was that picture? I'm trying to-
Inch and 7/8 by inch and
Yes.
7/8 by
3.5.
3.5 inch space. Square,
Can you send Amy a picture of that railing that I looked at, say there it is?
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. I know I still have your email, but if you could send it again. But is it a denial? Is it approval? I don't know. what
Denial of
best
the
way-
railing.
Approval of the deck, but denial of
I don't think we say that.
the railing. I don't know what the best way to say it is.
We're addressing the historic. Character? Or lack of.
Did you say appropriate character, not historic?
This is why I don't like doing this, because I feel that if zoning says
It's not
no to
historic,
it,
it's conservation.
They're not gonna say no, though. They're gonna let him have the deck, just not the
that's
size. Yeah. Yeah, they're not gonna deny him the deck. Yes, yeah.
so I could see if we're only denying part of it, I could see this being done as an approval or a denial.
That's what I'm struggling with, yeah.
Yeah, it is a little odd.
Let's say denial of the deck is completed
yes.
and approval of the, I don't wanna say decking material, it has to be spelled out that it's the floor deck.
Yeah.
Usually it's stated something like with a recommendation, I don't say it's a recommendation, because that makes, or about the railings, it makes it sound like sounds like he has an option.
Yeah. I
And
wouldn't
we
say
wanna
rec- I
do
wouldn't say
right now.
recommendation, no.
An approval of the railing to be in,
Denial of the
Consist of the
existing,
following.
denial of the existing railing. And the denial of the style of the existing railing.
well, if we say denial of the deck is completed, that covers the whole thing, right?
But we're not denying the whole. Yeah, so I think it would have to be a denial.
Well, the deck is getting, linked with the zoning anyway, so. It's just the deck material is, you're okay with, it's just the deck size is with zoning. And if you're not in support of the railings, and then we just explain it as the recommendation of the board is what you had recommended.
Are you saying it's a denial though, or an approval?
Well, you can't really deny or approve the deck because of the fact that zoning's involved with it. You know, we're not going to dismiss, we're not going to say no to deck.
We're denying the existing railing
Correct,
on the deck.
correct. That sounds good to me. I like that.
We're denying a certificate of appropriateness. It has to be a denial,
Yeah,
right?
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, yeah, because if
Because we're
anything short of that,
denying.
then you're saying it's okay.
and you could say,
Can deny it and
Deny-
then just say that they have the option to come back and resubmit.
Denial with the following contingencies, you know, deck size begin addressed by the zoning board. Removal of all railings. And recommendation of replacing with what you may recommend.
I like that motion. Okay.
Winner.
say it again.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm thinking too while you're talking, I'm sorry.
Just so you guys know, this is still being recorded on BCTV.
Denial of the,
Denial of the deck
as completed.
as completed. Size of the deck to be, material of the deck approved, but the size of the deck to be reviewed by the zoning board.
Approval. HARB approves.
Recommendation of removal of all railings for inappropriateness and replaced with blank, what you were saying. I think that's what I said the first time.
Well, but the way you just worded that was as an approval, right?
No, I said denial of
Okay.
deck
Deck as completed.
as completed.
Okay.
I started it with
And
that.
say the HARB approves. The construction of a deck
But not the size,
with
the
the
size is,
following modification.
right, correct.
The existing deck material. The HARB approves the existing deck material. Something to that.
But takes
And the-
exception to the railing,
the HARB
accepts the deck material. Deck size to be approved by zoning.
Right.
Deck railings deemed inappropriate. Recommended replacement by what? Parents,
And so would the approval for a railing design be made by the board or at staff level?
can you do it at that level?
Come back.
yeah. If you don't mind me possibly referring back to you, like sending an email saying, like I'll put the conditions, like it should be a railing. Like you said, of 1 and, 1 inch and 1 7/8 inches by 1 7/8 inches. With a 3-inch spacing, the spindles, the square spindles between top and bottom rail, like I'll be very.
I'm gonna suggest that we have the application come back with a proposal, only because we don't have a policy that covers porch and railing installations.
So this could be a recommendation for modifications
Yeah.
as follows, and then state. The applicant is to return to the board with a formal proposal.
Yeah, does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
If we had a formal policy and we could just point them toward, you know, follow this
Yeah.
guideline, then Amy could easily review it and make sure that it does, but in this
What if they
case.
don't show up? They'll just submit to Ms. Johnson
Then,
and then it comes back to us again.
so they would not submit, well, they don't have an approval. So they would either have to appeal it to city council
Yeah,
or,
they could.
Alright.
you know, come back with an application.
So we'll
Okay.
provide the recommendation for the railing. And state that the applicant is returned to the HARB with a formal proposal for review and approval. And the HARB approval is contingent on zoning approval. I wanna make sure that is in there, so.
And you would include the recommendations that we discussed
Yes,
about the railing
yes.
design?
And be
Yeah,
very
okay.
concise.
I think that's about as far as we can go without having the applicant here. That's what makes this so hard.
Right.
We can't really discuss like
They
what our
don't have to be
recommendations
here.
are. So that was a motion.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Mr. Polteca,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
all right, yeah, I'm just.
Oh.
Sorry, that's all right. Someone wanna make a motion to approve the applications approved by staff?
I do. Sure he is.
If you.
Technically not. Yeah. But we need a second.
Oh, I'll second.
Mr. Polteca,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
other business preservation officer report on action items, do you have any
I
reports?
do not have a report. This consumed all my time, but I am going to pass out the draft amendment that we're going to discuss.
I think we're gonna table one.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
okay,
gotta,
I'll
I gotta write out here waiting for me,
Okay.
so I gotta
No,
go.
I'll still give it to you though,
Okay.
so you have it. Even, I did email it to you.
The amendments are highlighted or folded or
Thank you.
red.
Yes, they're
Okay.
folded, yeah.
Perfect.
The added words as per the city clerk, they're folded, and I said that in my email.
As per the city clerk, is this what we discussed at the last meeting?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. I also noticed as we were going through the roof application this evening that we may need to revisit the language on that because that was written before we had a financial hardship policy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in some ways, there's some overlap with financial hardship policy, but other aspects maybe not completely in agreement with the financial hardship
I voted for
policy.
you, Mike.
Yeah.
So I'll take a second look at that.
Yeah. I voted for you.
Okay.
I gotta fly. I'm sorry, but I got someone waiting for me, so. I gotta go.
I think that's.
So I don't think we're gonna go.
Any report for the education and outreach committee?
That's usually Aaron
Aaron,
and I.
yeah. Policy committee report,
We just discussed.
yeah. And then the review of the proposed amendment to the historic district ordinance.
Do we need to make a motion to table it?
Yeah.
I'll move that.
Mr. Polteca,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Say that, I think that's it. Not
need
any
a
words.
motion to adjourn.
Somebody did. Good night.